This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, where we seem to be here, and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of, it's, you know, it's an unsafe world, there's not enough for you, it's scary, everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one, or
Cosmic resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
You know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. And just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony, on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention, it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary, because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
Hello. How's YouTube doing tonight? Twitter, Facebook, we are live on all three. I'm joined with the wonderful Mike from Faraday Research, and Campbell Autodidactic will be joining us soon. He's just finishing up another recording and will be joining us here in about 30 minutes. I'm just finishing getting ready some demonstrations outside, so I'm going to let Mike talk for a second here and be joining in with another camera view momentarily.
Yep. Hey everybody, how's everybody doing tonight? And yeah, we've been busy. Both of us have been working on projects, and Bernie and myself are going to be talking about our projects and our findings in the last week. And yeah, so starting last week, I was working on the pulse motor generator. I decided to put that back on the bench again, and I decided to do some testing. And I was dabbling with in the past with the piezo transducers, high frequency oscillators. and they're like little wafer things. They're maybe about 1 inch. You could get them in all different sizes and power ranges and stuff like that. So I decided what would happen if I attach those on the back end of the pulse motor generator. So I hooked it up, started to run it, and I put a 8 load on the circuit, 8.5 watts of light on the end, turned it on, and then I attached the piezo transducer across in parallel with the light bulb. Lo and behold, it went from 10 volts, it shot up to approximately 15 volts in an instant, like instantaneous. The voltage shot up. I'm like,
Quite the effect.
ooh, what happened here? So I carried on with that and decided, okay, let's see if I add 2 piezos to the equation. Added another one in series, in parallel again, and fired it up, and she went, instead of from 15 volts, now it's hitting 20 volts. I'm like, ooh, am I onto something here? So I went at it again. I said, okay, let's add another piezo. So now I got 3 piezos in series, in parallel, fired it up, and now the thing's hitting 30 volts. So I went from 10 volts to 30 volts.
Now. That's
from
crazy.
10 to 30. From 10 to 30.
10 to 30, okay.
Yeah.
It's quite the step up, 3x over a couple of experiments.
So I talked with, I'll just say Mr. X. I'll put it that way. He doesn't really want to be known.
We're dealing with X's and Z's now, are we?
Yeah, Mr. X, I'd rather not mention his name because he would probably get a little upset with me if I used his real name. But anyways, he's kind of my, other half of my brain, I guess you could say. Somebody who's been working on this stuff for way longer than I have. And I told him the situation. I added these piezos, and my potential starts rising every time I add another piezo to the circuit. So his take on the whole situation is that I've created somewhat what you would call a tank circuit. So you would have a power source, an inductor, which is the coil of the pulse motor, and then the piezos on the other end, which are also coil, and they create a frequency as well. So I got this ricocheting of power back and forth. So that's basically is
way to explain it, Mike.
Yeah, it's pretty much what you would call a tank circuit. So yeah, that was his educated guess on what was happening with it. He says the big test is adding a load. And I said, well, I'm putting 8.5 watts of load on that circuit, and it's sustaining a 30 volt charge on the back end of the system, and it's sustaining itself. Now, the other thing, which is a great asset to this scenario, it's also making my pulse motor generator a lot more efficient. So I could put in literally 8.5, say 9 volts, and the draw of current off my prime mover or battery or whatever you want to use to power the system is only drawing about 90 milliamps, which for a pulse motor is pretty impressive. If you can get a sustained power, run 8 watts, all right, or 8.5 watts, and only be putting in 3/4 of a watt input, that's pretty impressive. That's like 800 times. So I put that number through the efficiency calculator with the numbers that I actually put in, and it showed that the motor was running at 1100% efficiency, which was, holy cow, that is pretty high. I don't know. I know a few guys out there that have been doing this for 30 years, and they're not getting 1100% efficiency on a pulse motor. I've seen some pretty good ones. He has some pretty impressive machines himself, but I just literally blew the doors off his machine by adding those piezo transducers on the back end. And the thing is, like, I got 8.5 watts of load on that end. So not only that I've increased the voltage, I can sustain 8.5 watts of load, which is very encouraging because that shows, number one, voltage is coming out. And I've also created more of an EMF effect. And we've talked about this before. That's electromotive force, which means I'm creating more current. But even better than that, it's requiring less power on the input side, or what we call the prime mover. It takes less power to do it. So I'm creating more power, I'm creating more EMF, I'm creating more current, and it's taking less power to do it. And that is the recipe of over unity. And that's exactly what I've done. So, you know, I can really focus in on this and perfect it. I've made some sort of, I don't know if you want to call it discovery, or it was just a fluke, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it just came to me. Let's hook up a transducer to it and see what happens. And sometimes when you're doing experiments, think outside the box and just grab something that you think, okay, let's just try it, see what happens. And then you hook it up, and then you get this amazing effect. And you're like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, holy cow, what just happened there? So it just kind of snowballed from there. And then I was originally running the system with a 4.5 watt bulb. And then I put a 5.5 in, and it didn't work. So I said, okay, let's try more of a load. I put an 8.5 watt bulb in, more of a resistive load, and then the reaction started again. So there are areas of frequency and load and resistance in the circuit that you have to have in order for that reaction to happen. And that's what happens in the tank circuit. So you got, say, a capacitor, then you have your coil, which has a certain amount of resistance, okay? And then you have a capacitor on the other side. So if you don't have enough resistive load in your system, it's not going to draw the current away from it. It's going to fill the coil up. When the coil gets saturated, where it cannot take any more power, that EMF field that's in that coil is now going to collapse on itself. And that's what we talk about time and time again, the negative energy. And this is where the over unity happens, 0 point, whatever you want to call it. When you get a collapse, it's like when you go in an airplane, the best way I could describe it metaphorically is you're in an airplane and you're flying, and then all of a sudden the plane loses altitude and you get that weightless effect. That weightless effect is where you get 0 point. That's where it happens. That's where the negative energy enters your system. It's that point of where you're climbing, and then all of a sudden you lose the potential, and then what happens is when it collapses, you drop, and when you drop, you get that basically, you know, zero G effect, or like anti-gravity effect. You feel weightless. The same thing happens with energy. You get a field, you build it up, you got this field built, and then when you cut the power, that field now has to collapse. And that's what we work on, negative energy, negative implosive energy. What we've been using for the last 150 years is explosive energy. Like the car, it's explosive, it's expanding. We're working with exactly the opposite. We're working with implosive energy. And that the pulse motor is a perfect, prime example of that. So, yeah, so I worked on that and had some pretty good success with it. It's still a work in progress. Getting incredible efficiency out of this motor now with putting very little power in and getting a lot of power out, and that's the key. So yeah, so I'm going to continue with that. I'm trying to metaphorically make it easy for somebody who's not in the electrical field to understand it, but that's a perfect way to explain 0 point.
Absolutely.
Field.
You're putting it in very understandable terms, my friend.
Yeah, and that's like the airplane scenario. I mean, travel in an airplane, you lose altitude, you get that weightless effect. That's the collapse. That's where 0 point is, right there. It's the negative collapse. And also, if you want to expand on it, you make another machine that does exactly that same scenario and creates your anti-gravity. So that's how you basically remove mass from an object. So you create this field around the ship, and then when that ship is contained in that field, you collapse that field around the ship, and guess what? Now the ship has now lost its mass, and that's how you get your anti-gravity effect. So obviously these visitors that are coming to visit us have perfected this. Now, not only that it gives you anti-gravity, it also gives you an infinite amount of power. So they have a good power source because they're able to tap into the 0 point energy field and also use it to power their spacecraft. So, these UAPs are starting to come out into the mainstream. And I think that's now, for the longest time, especially through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the elephant was in the room. And now that, these UFOs have been recorded by the military, and now that elephant in the room is starting to get recognized by regular academia. So
exactly, right? Now that the Pentagon has officially recognized the UAP technology disclosure, and it's now a race from what used to be instantly suppressed, instantly classified as national defense, instantly quote-unquote debunked. Now it's a race to actually fund all of these different higher dimensional technologies and understandings in physics and engineering, because the only way to get the tic-tac and other UFO, UAP anti-gravitic effects is by this over unity higher dimensional energies and technologies. And Pandora's box has been opened, and the floodgates are open now.
Well, see, like the military-industrial complex, they've been working on this stuff for 70 years. Okay, fossil fuel was officially obsolete as of 1940. There was a machine that they created in Toronto at the old Avro building where they built the Avro Arrow.
The Arrow, right? And they forced the cancellation of the Arrow.
Yeah, I live not too far away from that hangar. So I'm about a 30-minute drive from that hangar where they built the Avro Arrow. But anyways, they had other secret projects going on at that time. And one of them was called the cold electricity generator. And there's virtually no documentation on this device. It was built by the head engineers from Avro and also the guys from Project Paperclip, the leftovers of the Nazis. Some of those engineers were working side by side with the Avro engineers, and they were working on this stuff right not too far from where I live. So
that's amazing. I had never even heard of that.
Yeah, it was called the cold electricity generator. It basically was a modified refrigeration unit that created electricity basically forever. Soon as you fire it up.
Okay, I understand that. It's essentially the same as how they get electricity energy out of a vacuum tube through a 3-phase circuit with mesh as the third phase, and then it absorbs all the surrounding heat and energy and
Yeah.
turns it into electricity through that plasma tube.
Right. So what they did was basically they used that principle there, but what they did was as soon as you add a cryogenic scenario to it, you get super efficiencies to the point where it's actually 0 point. And that's what this refrigeration unit was. So, they created this unit apparently, and the more load apparently you put on the machine, the more power it put out. So it was using the vacuum refrigeration of the system to induce the 0 point negative energy into the core. And that's what brought you the power. So the more you drew off the core, the more it pulled it in. So you have to create a vacuum scenario, okay? And we do it even with the pulse motor. We're creating a vacuum scenario because we're creating a field, and then when you cut that field, that field it collapses in on itself, and that's what this cold generator did back at the Avro plant. It was around 1942. If I'm not mistaken, that was the time period. So there was CIA here, there was the NSA, there was the guys from Project Paperclip. There were some pretty big wig U.S. officials hovering around this place where they were building the Aero, and that was about 30-minute drive from where I live now. I think the original hangar where they built the Avro car, they were actually building a flying saucer there in the 50s. It was called the Avro car. You can look it up on YouTube. You can look it up on Google. It was called the Avro car, and they were basically trying to engineer a flying saucer. So after all those engineers and everything, there was a lot of projects going on at this time. It was a very, very busy time in Toronto with all this secret development was going on. And at that
sorry,
time,
to interrupt you. We'll discuss that in a minute when I'm back inside because I'm currently freezing my arse off out here. I just wanted to let everyone know what we are currently looking at here.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And it is a discovery I've made in regards to the HHO electrolysis or H4 that you have to utilize to make, but it's over like minus 25 degrees Celsius here in Calgary right now. So this saltwater electrolysis unit I set up, reactor, the water was completely frozen solid, but by plugging it into just 5 volts of electricity, it's melting and it's still producing the gases. You can see it bubbling, as well as the monoatomic zinc on one side and aluminum, copper on the other side with some oxidization, but it's that it melts the ice and produces this gas still in the winter, so it would make it still feasible to use these hydrogen-powered electrolysis systems throughout the world and not just in the temperate, warm, non-freezing zones.
Yeah. So what I see with your system, Bernie, is your electrodes that are in there, they're now super cool. So now the resistance in your electrodes is now gone way low. So that means now you can put less power and get the same effects, if not better. So you've got a natural, cryogenic scenario there where you can actually get a better result in a freezing cold scenario. If it's minus 25, you're going to get way better conductivity in a low pressure situation like in cold. So that does not surprise me at all that you're getting those effects. And your power consumption is going to be a lot less now because you've now made your electrodes into superconductors. Now, if you were to hit it with, say, liquid nitrogen, your efficiency would like go through the roof. It would be like way out there. So yeah, it's part of the negative energy.
Right? And so that's something that's huge with these monoatomic plasma technology called fusion/superconductors is the colder you get, the more efficient, the more over unity supercapacitance you get from this monoatomic material. Thus, in outer space, whatever it is, the temperature is extremely low. The energy is low there, radiant energy. Thus, you will get the highest amount of possible energy from these systems once you are in whatever that outer space vacuum is.
Yeah, it's minus 376 degrees. So in Kelvin, it's 3 Kelvin. That's outer space. All right, so that's very, very cold. Now that temperature also fluctuates depending on where you are. It'll increase if you're on a large body, say like our planet. Obviously, your temperature is going to greatly rise. You're not going to have minus 376 degrees. You're going to have, a lot warmer of a scenario. So when you're on a planet, your energy devices are not going to be that efficient because they're working at in a resistance, right? You're working in a resistance. So the holy grail of electricity is to get zero resistance. If you have zero resistance, you get perpetual motion, you get free energy, and your systems would last for infinite. So yeah, your experiment totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. So how long have you had?
Sorry, I'm just going to disconnect for a sec while I head back inside.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, definitely. If you're working on energy efficiency and you have a way of super cooling your circuit, it's going to make a way more. That's why you can do the experiments with a magnet. You could super cool it and put it over a field or on a flat surface, like a metal surface or whatever, and that magnet's now going to hover over it because you've created such a negative energy scenario. Hey, Campbell. Good day.
Hello.
Good day. Good day.
How you going? You can keep talking. How's the thing?
Yeah. So yeah, we're just discussing our experiments we've done in the last week, and then Bernie showed his sub-minus zero alchemy projects, and we've discovered that he is able to do the same reactions with a lot less power now because he's in a super cooled scenario. The cooler you make your circuit, the more efficient it becomes. So we're talking about negative energy and how it affects your system. So just kind of to recap on what we're doing, what I did last week with the pulse motor, is I added piezoelectric transducers. They're like little wafers. They're about, like a loonie or a toonie, silver dollar, in size. And you apply voltage to it, and it's got a crystal inside. And when you apply voltage to it, it vibrates. Or you can use it the other way. If you press and create pressure on that crystal, it creates current. So you could actually take one of these, tap it, and you can light up an LED bulb with it. It's creating current. So I decided last week to try hooking up one of these piezo transducers on the output of my circuit to my pulse motor, and lo and behold, it increased my output. So I added 3 of them. So my input voltage to run the motor, it takes less power for me to run the motor, and I'm putting out more power. So I did a series of experiments with it. I added 3 piezos in series with an 8.5 watt load on the other side of it. And my input voltage was 8 volts at 90 milliamps. So when I added that into my calculator, I got an efficiency of 1100%.
Wow.
Yeah. 1100%.
So they're obviously after the input, what are they called? Transducers, the crystals?
Yeah, the piezo.
Piezoelectric, yeah. So it goes in, and then as it hits each one, it's amplifying the...
Right, and when it does it, it ricochets it back into the coil again, so what you're creating like a tank circuit.
Oh.
So you got an oscillation. Now I'm creating a vibration between the piezo and the coil that runs the pulse motor. So, and then if you get it at the right frequency, now you're creating a harmonic. And if you get that harmonic going, you get way more potential. And that's exactly what happened. So first I started off with 1, increased it by 5 volts, and the power input went down. And then I said, okay, let's add 1 more. Same thing again, added another 5 volts and decreased my input. I said, okay, let's go again. Added a 3rd one. So I went from 10 volts to 30 volts.
Wow.
Yeah. And the motor, when I started, the lowest I could run it at was about 9.5, almost 10 volts. And then I got it down to 8 volts at 90 milliamps. And with a pulse motor, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
So I'm putting in. So that's how I do it. That's how I experiment. So if I see an effect and it's working good, I add 1 more. And if I get even a better effect, then I add another one. I could probably add 10 of them if I wanted to. But there is a point where it's going to taper off and you won't get any more effect. So you're going to have to just add 1 by 1 until you get the highest peak. Yeah.
So can you tune that frequency at all? The frequency
I can tune it just.
I
can tune it just by. I could tune it easily just by the speed of the motor, how it runs, and also the time circuit. I could also adjust the timing circuit. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
So,
it's potentially going to make a harmonic.
Yeah.
We talk so much about harmonics and things with, the cathedrals and with the old tech and that. And it's interesting. So is that just a production of like the motor, or did they work backwards? It's just very interesting.
Well, we've been because I've come to realize we've kind of been doing things backwards, where people focus on the coil and where we should be focusing first on the frequency and back engineer it from there. If you get that frequency and then you get that coil to harmonically resonate with the frequency.
You have to have your circuit in resonance and at its prime resonance of efficiency and unity to then be able to access and harness the over unity.
Yeah, and I proved this, and it's working. So I'm definitely on to something. It is. Now, here's the other scenario, too. I first started with a 4.5 watt bulb as a load. Okay, so I worked with the 1 piezo. So after I did that, I added a 5.5 watt, and the reaction didn't happen. And then after that, I added an 8.5 watt load. The reaction came back on. So there has to be a certain, it's a range of resistive load. So this is where it starts getting kind of technical, where you have to have the right amount of resistive load in the circuit for you to get that harmonic resonation going within the coil.
It's just like cymatics.
Yeah.
When you see them and they go out of the tune, it just all goes frazzly and they get nothing. And then when they hit that sweet spot, bing.
That's right.
Exactly. The right geometry of spectrum in your frequency.
It's like tuning a guitar.
Yeah, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
So did the ancients work backwards from the harmonic and then work backwards to produce it, which is because, like you said,
their whole language was harmonics. The ancient, from the Arabic, the Hebrewic, and the Oh man, what's it called there? The not Assyrian, but Aramaic, the Aramaic language. All three of those, when spoken, they're the full harmonic, just like the Maharashtra, the Indian prayers, where they speak it, but it's like a full song because it's hitting the full spectrum of the frequency per syllable or letter.
Yeah, it's like another good way to look at it too is there's some people out there that have a really strong voice, and they can take a crystal wine glass, and what the guy will do is he'll ring it. Okay, he has a acute sense of hearing for this. He'll ring it, and then he'll start doing that tone with his voice, and it gets in harmonic resonance with it. That glass is going to shatter, and that's exactly what happens. So there's a couple of guys out there that can actually do this physically with their voice. So it's exactly the same scenario. And
I've seen an opera singer do it.
They can do it very easy.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. Opera singers, they're so loud.
Yeah,
the way they project their voice, and that's got to be something too. That's because it's a whole art form, the way to sing operatic. It's a different way of singing, and it's really about producing tones, isn't it? Rather than singing, it's about hitting frequency. So
when you hit the right tone, the potential increases greatly without actually physically having to put more power into it.
Because opens up a vortex almost. But wow, how cool! And so is it working better in cold because you're dealing with cold plasma, like cold fusion?
Well, it's negative energy, right? See, when you work with negative energy, your circuits become a lot more efficient. That's superconductivity. That's kind of like the holy grail of electronics, is to have zero resistance. So the cooler you make your circuit, the less resistance in your circuit you have. That's why you can take a magnet and dip it into liquid nitrogen, and it'll hover above a metal surface. Is because you've made that into a superconductor.
Because it's cold, right?
That's right. So I was telling Bernie a little history lesson. I lived not too far away when they built the Avro Aero, and that hangar at that time, they had a lot of engineers from Operation Paperclip, and they were designing the Avro car at this facility that's actually right near Pearson International Airport in Toronto. And they were developing the UFO, they were developing new energy devices, new rocket, military defense systems, nuclear stuff they were working on. There was a whole bunch of projects, but the one that I thought was kind of interesting, and there's almost literally no documentation whatsoever, is the cold energy generator. It was a modified refrigeration unit that created free energy. And basically, the second you turned it on, that was it. It would never go off.
Wow.
And it was using this sub-zero negative energy to create electricity through a coil system. So basically, the more load you put on the system, the more energy it would put out. So at that time in 1942, they did basically come to the consensus that fossil fuels are pretty much obsolete.
60
that was
years
before the end of World War II, even.
Yeah.
17 Joy, if you don't have the 100, we should. I will use $100 out of my donated PayPal, so half of my account, if you need to buy that organ, if we can get it, because that would be something to experiment with.
Yeah. $100. How big is it?
And where are you?
my man. It's like 30 about 39 here today, I think.
Right, I watched that video you uploaded yesterday, I think, and you were like just in the very top corner, and I see you in the beater. I was like, "Oh, you lucky bastard!" It's too hot there, but it's better than being too cold. Let me tell you, Australia.
Yeah,
Let me tell you. Too hot is better than too cold.
I got a snowstorm outside right now, so
yeah, it's nice. So it's just oh god, it's been really hot yesterday and today, and so air conditioning's decided to not work. It's working, but not that well. So it's
39. Yeah, that would be uncomfortable.
You got what?
39 degrees. Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah. I think 30. I think 33 is about 100. So it's I don't know what it is, 100 and something.
I can handle up to about 33, and then after that, it's not good.
Yeah,
33. That's just spring, mate.
Yeah.
No doubt. It gets so hot that you can fry the egg on like the hood of your car, sort of deal.
Yeah. Oh, you can.
But we get hot here in Toronto too.
Like 30 degrees.
Yeah, it gets 35 here in Calgary in the summer.
Yeah, like some years we get 38 degrees.
See, that's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah,
we get almost as hot as us, but we get.
The sun is above us for so long because we're so far north that it's that.
Yeah, we're in the north.
Sun for just that month.
Yeah, it's a small
July there that it comes in.
Like we get some pretty hot summers here in Toronto. Don't kid yourself. We get everything here. We get coldest of the cold. And we get some pretty damn hot temperatures here too. Yeah, it's such a huge swing from season to season. It's just unbelievable. Yeah,
it is. In Calgary here too, with the Chinook, it's like yesterday it was plus 10 degrees Celsius. Today it is minus 25 degrees Celsius. We had a 35 degrees shift.
Is that a wind? Is that a wind? The Chinook?
That's without the wind chill. It's just that freaking cold out.
Is that what the Chinook is, though? Is that a wind?
The Chinook, it's the warm wind that comes in from the mountains when it snows in the mountains, that endothermic reaction or exothermic reaction of the water freezing into snow from the clouds in the atmosphere there, then produces the warm energy. So it'll be snowing in Banff and Lake Louise, our national parks by us, where it's amazing to go skiing, snowboarding. That's the one good thing about winter, is just ripping down a mountain from the top, especially when you climb it yourself in the backcountry and you make that fresh line, your single first line down an entire mountain. That is fun. But so it'll be melting here with water running down the streets and then snowing in the mountains. And then it's like when you drive out on the #1 Trans-Canada to the mountains, it's like you go literally from brown yellow grass to like a couple feet of snow and like half a kilometer just when you hit the side of the edge of the mountain. It's pretty crazy.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, we used to have like a wind called the Fremantle Doctor, and like in summer it would come in at like 2 o'clock every afternoon, and it would just cool everything down by like 10 degrees. But it's gone, and geoengineering killed it. Like we haven't had it in 15 years or something.
That's weird. That's crazy.
I found out something too.
It was like clockwork, and now it's just gone.
Apparently, I found out some information that I forgot to share with you guys about the HARP project in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah.
Apparently, everybody was saying that it had to do with they were trying to do weather manipulation. Well, apparently not.
What manipulation? Sorry.
They were trying to manipulate the weather with it. Well, it turns out it's not. That's totally false.
Really?
So,
it's a story.
Mods, if you can delete this is a porn bot. Anything with these weird dot something with
don't anyone click on that stuff.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Sorry, Mike. Were you saying which was not a weather mod? Because the
HARP project. The HARP project is
100% modified.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's not. I was watching a video with Eric Dollard, and he basically totally debunked it. He goes, "It's not weather manipulation." He says, "If one country." No, it's not. according to him, it is not weather manipulation.
That's according to Dollar. The Dollar grew up on military bases, so who knows if he's like compromised?
Ooh.
Because the ionosphere, it directly shows that it creates these holes in the ionosphere, which then lets the radiant energy out into space, instantly cooling that space, and then also driving all the moisture away, which is specifically weather modification of driving away the clouds, and then from when it punctures those holes in the ionosphere, that you're creating the pressure difference. So you're going from a low pressure into a high pressure from it zapping up into.
Now, two countries that are doing weather manipulation a lot. One is China, and the other one's Russia.
Yeah, I believe that 100%.
Communists.
And that's what's coming from Dollard. Dollar says the Chinese have been working on it for years.
Oh, America's not doing it, but the Chinese and Russians are.
Well, he's saying, you know, those antenna arrays cannot do what people claim that it's doing.
Do you know what's he saying that it is doing?
He says what they're doing is they're trying to make the atmosphere and an antenna for world communication. So
I don't doubt that at all either.
Yeah, world broadcasting. Yeah.
God,
I'm not saying that it was
straight into your brain or something.
The project. I'm just saying that it was a side effect of the technology, and that it was proven to do so. And that's why there's all those pictures of above these rays, these giant holes in the clouds, and like in the actual
maybe
atmosphere.
You know what? It's possible that the military, they did this, you know, in the purpose of making a communication system, but a side effect, maybe it was manipulating the weather.
Exactly, right? Like it was discovered and
maybe it wasn't
as a side effect of what they were doing with it.
Yeah,
we've got a massive one in WA. We've got a huge HARP installation up in the halfway up the coast in the middle of nowhere. It's massive. Looks like I think it's in the shape of a star as well.
Right, that
so can they get free energy from that temperature displacement?
I'm just going to grab a drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries, Mike. There's a question in the live chat about CERN, and one thing is they've only powered CERN on properly 2 or 3 times to its max, and each time it just coincidentally had to be at the same time as a solar maximum. And there's evidence that they pull out energy to power CERN from the solar flare and from that maximum, and that there's a bridge of electric, and it's the electric universe theory that gave this information. But just coincides with each time that they powered it up, it was at these solar maximums. And then I remember it was, I think, the second time they did it. They've only done it one time since then. This was several years ago. And it was that big Nepal earthquake happened right when they did it. And it was literally on the opposite side of the planet from where they are, that this earthquake happened in Nepal as soon as they powered it on. And I was at a Nassim Haramein conference in person with Nassim just like a week after this happened, and I brought it up, and he was so excited that someone else had also noticed the correlation between the two, and the fact that as soon as CERN went on to its maximum, there was a massive earthquake that happened. And who knows what sort of effects it has, but it definitely messes with the inner workings of our plane.
Well,
yeah, like Dollard, he was developing earthquake detection devices. So
Tesla, didn't he? Apparently.
Yeah,
and even the ancient Chinese had these earthquake testing machines from like 3,500 years ago. You've ever seen it?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. To show that.
Like Dollard, his machine that he had running back in the early 90s would give you approximately 24 hours notice to a major earthquake. And so he had a probe that was taking measurements of the electromagnetic fluctuations and electricity that was being, I guess, charges or surges going through the planet. Is my camera working?
Yeah, no, you just disappeared. You turned into a symbol.
Okay, why did that happen?
Like Prince. He turned himself into
camera just
There you go.
Oh, okay. There
Oh,
I am.
no, you're back.
Oh, I'm back. I was wondering what was going on. Yeah, so he was able to detect these huge fluctuations of electromagnetic energy and actually have it like a headset on. He could hear this activity with the electrical discharges going on in the planet just prior to a major earthquake. And the one that hit LA, I think, what was it, 93? The big one they had in LA? What was it?
I remember hearing about that he tried to warn them or something.
84, that one was it? Yeah.
94? Yeah, 94.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, he knew about that earthquake was coming 24 hours before. And he tried to warn people, and they said, oh, he was crazy. And then this massive 9 on the Richter scale earthquake hits. So obviously, what he was doing was an effective method of detecting major earthquakes.
Mike, have you ever seen BP Earthwatch on YouTube? He's
BP
a really good channel that he
Is that the one
measures.
that showed the volcano?
Yeah, exactly. He actually has
amazing.
quite the record of predicting both major earthquakes and volcanoes. And he monitors the SOHO satellites that monitor the sun radiation. And then from that, directly ties it to broadcasting earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. And he gets, I think, 24 to 72 hours ahead of time. He's giving these notifications all the time, and then they
I think it's
ignoring him.
I think it's pretty apparent on a full moon. It seems to trigger earthquakes. So next time there's a full moon, kind of keep your eyes peeled to the
moon
internet.
is so fascinating.
So what exactly? What is an earthquake? It's some kind of energy shift, or it's some kind of charge.
It's probably
an energy wave. Yeah.
It's an energy wave / pressure that it puts on the tectonic plates. And when you get a massive charge going through the Earth's crust, it's going to affect those fault lines. So, say a full moon, the gravitational effect on the planet increases on a full moon. And that will trigger these electromagnetic fluctuations within the Earth. And if there's a fracture or a fault line, that it can get compromised and stressed, and then the reactions happen.
I don't know if I'm into the whole fault line thing, because I live in Australia, and we had an earthquake last year. We are not. We are on. They tell us we're on a full plate. We should not get earthquakes.
Yeah, like where I live in.
And if we do, they should be in the ocean. So before an earthquake, we should be getting massive waves and tidal waves and stuff.
Was there any fracking around that area?
There's heaps of, not really. Most of the fracking's more north and inland, because it started coastal New South Wales.
So even if the fracking's on one side, it can cause something to collapse or shift or whatnot, and then cause that earthquake on the other side of that connected continent.
But what's that?
That's a cascade. It's a cascading effect.
Because that's happening. If we're talking that there's tectonic plates, that would be happening on a tectonic plate. So it's a different
not necessarily
function,
not necessarily.
Right? Earthquake to the from the fracking, that's different to tectonic plates rubbing against.
Yeah. So the fracking, it's that they're sucking everything up out of it, all that oil and gas, and releasing that pressure, and then they're creating this big empty void. And fracking, it's fracturing the actual aqueduct, the aquifer level of the solid bedrock, so that now your groundwater, instead of it being on that plane before, now it seeps in, and then it's creating even more empty space, and then everything just sinks into one giant sinkhole, and then that shift, that mass that then causes that ripple or whatnot.
Yeah, because if you do if you're doing fracking and you're doing it about 4 to 6 kilometers below you, you realize how much pressure is on top of you. So now if you've compromised the structure underneath, you got billions of tons of pressure now exerting on those faults, which were created by the fracking. So it wouldn't surprise me if that can trigger something. Would not surprise me.
Well, and then, you know, we now know that there's tunnels everywhere too. So, you know, what happens if they're cracking into tunnels and stuff and causing collapses and things, you know, if you imagine everything sucking into a massive void, that seems more likely to me. There's this video out, I can't remember the channel, but it showed a volcano was in, I can't remember, something that's erupted recently. And it shows this volcano, and you just see these big green beams coming down, and it gets shot about 3 times, and then it just starts erupting, and then they just keep shooting it, and it just goes.
Wow, was that the one that happened in the island of Tonga? Are you talking about that one, or the one that happened in the Philippines?
It could have been. I cannot remember. Let me check. But it was bizarre. It looked, you know, pretty real to me. You know, and this is the thing, right? The whole volcano thing. There's just so many questions about that.
The Taal volcano that erupted in the Philippines recently, I actually climbed that volcano with my wife in 2009. We took a trip to Tagaytay in Luzon, and we decided to take a trip and actually climb that volcano. So we got to the top of the summit of the main vent that was there, and that was actually the one that blew up. So where we stood, it is gone now. It's
wow!
Gone.
Right?
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah. So what Wally Tango Foxtrot says here, this is what I believe to be the most plausible situation of what causes the energy from underneath, is that there's some sort of plasmatic core, and
there's charge in the earth.
Yeah,
huge
but
amounts
I don't believe in the solid iron core, that's for sure. There's more likely an inner sun, plasmatic sun of some sort, and that we might have a hollow honeycomb.
It's hollow.
Exactly. We have I believe there to be a hollow Earth, and then within that hollow Earth, could essentially be 2 planes or 2 disks, and then another disk of plane of existence within, and then you have your 3-dimensional disks of planes of an inner hollow system.
Well, because it's the same thing as the sun. Everybody thinks the sun is a solid mass. It's not. The sun is hollow. Exactly. It is a plasma outside. Everybody thinks it's fusion, but it's not. The only thing that's fusion, it's a plasma, and when it shoots out, every now and then it shoots out a sunburst, that's where you get your fusion. But the planet, or the sun itself, is hollow, and it's a well-known fact. So, but they don't like to talk about that. They don't like to talk about that.
Yeah, so there's always a lot of lightning around volcanic blasts, but what you were talking about, Campbell, those like beams coming down, I've seen a couple of them in other videos recently, not necessarily of...
It's power. It's power coming from the stratosphere.
But other reactions of plasmatic things that happened and whatnot.
Like I said before, we live on a giant capacitor. You got the Earth and the ionosphere. If you look at it on a scale, it's approximately 1 inch off the ground, because we're on this big planet, and the atmosphere, if you want to put it in perspective, it's basically the clouds are about 1 inch off the ground. So that differentiation of charges is very close. When you get the conditions just right, that's when you get your lightning. All right. So when you have a volcano and it's spewing all this charge from inside the Earth, it now ionizes that space, and that's why you get all that lightning. And the perfect example, it's on YouTube. You can type in Taal volcano, Taal volcano, and you'll see the eruption, and you'll see the most amazing light show you've ever seen. Lightning everywhere. It was incredible. it totally charges the atmosphere.
Well, I mean, lava's iron, isn't it?
Well, it's charging the atmosphere. It's creating that ionization. You know, you've made the.
They're both in plasmatic state, though. One's
That's
in
right.
a hot
It's a
plasma, the other's in the
Yep.
cold plasmatic state.
Exactly. So when you created that plasma state, now you get the discharge of lightning. It's amazing. It's type it in on YouTube when you get a chance. TAAL volcano in Philippines. And the last eruption, it had the most incredible lightning storm in it. It was awesome.
There's actually heaps of videos now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up.
Volcanoes getting hit by lasers or something.
It's electrical discharges
from the atmosphere.
Can you share what?
Yeah,
too. Like you probably get ball lightning in there too.
Let me see this one. Okay, let's have a look.
I think it's the Cassini spacecraft that can detect gamma and antimatter, and it's now proven that an electrical lightning storm produces antimatter, which a lot of people don't know. So this Earth is generating antimatter all the time. There's a thunderstorm somewhere on the planet, and it's creating antimatter and gamma. So.
All right, hang on one tick. What am I doing? Tie screen. Allow. Hang on. Can you see that?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
That's ball lightning, maybe.
What the?
So that one's just a photo.
That could be ball lightning.
Intense.
Pretty bizarre. I'll see if it's got any footage. Oh.
Yeah, that looks like some kind of electrical discharge of some kind.
Look at that.
But it's like, is it happening beforehand? Oh, yeah, the light coming from the ground around it. That's been recorded for hundreds of years and stuff.
Down here.
Yeah, because lightning emanates from the ground.
Coming from the ground.
Oh,
and the
there, look at that. Wow.
Oh, look at it there. Yeah, wow.
You see that? From the cloud here.
So I think it could be the lightning or even ball lightning being created there.
Where is it?
And you're getting the plasmoids generated. The nanoclusters are being generated there. What Kenneth Shoulders was working on. And nature's doing that naturally.
God, it's a bit slow, this footage.
Yeah, every time we get a thunderstorm, a lightning storm here, I love it. I love watching lightning, especially if it's from a distance.
Me too. That was a crazy pic too. There, screen capture. So my dad got me a few different like handheld, decently powerful lasers, like as strong as you can get legally. And during a really strong lightning storm last summer, I was with Amber outside her house, and from the balcony, I pressed it up at the center of the storm, and I was like, it started like rumbling, and then it's like, I was like, oh my God, is it gonna shock me? And I like turned it off right away, and then it's like a lightning bolt came like so close to us, and it was like, oh my God, does the
because you've ionized the air
react? And it creates the plasmoids within the actual clouds and will trigger lightning directly to you. So be careful.
Be careful. Yeah, because the laser is ionizing the air because it has to break through the atmosphere, right?
Yeah, that looks like a laser shot right there. Wow.
It does, doesn't it?
That's not a ball lightning sort of thing. That's like a freaking plasma beam or ion beam. Look at that. That is a beam.
That could be antimatter. That could be an antimatter discharge. Because thunderstorms can produce antimatter.
Can it produce it that? And it's a very focused beam, isn't it?
It's extremely focused.
Same with gamma. Gamma is a very focused beam too. That's why quasars, when they shoot off gamma rays, they could travel hundreds of billions of light years.
So literally volcanoes could be set off by an electrical charge going from the Earth to the sky, and
there's almost always that, before it happens or as it initially happens. Two strikes, one from the ground, one from the Earth, one from the atmosphere, and one from the ground back up. The rod of God, just to answer a question that's on screen, rod of God is one of kinetic energy. So you're taking an actual physical rod of metal from the orbit and then dropping it down, and then it's a kinetic impact of what that rod of God supposed weapon technology is. So it would not be a rod of God. It would be a laser, phaser, some sort of plasma beam, as opposed to the dew weapon, possibly, as opposed to any sort of kinetics.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a natural process, and they're
exactly.
So now they're just mimicking it to set them off themselves.
Well, that's exactly it. Like Tesla says, we're going to make machines that feed off, nature, right? The forces of nature. That's exactly what it is, right?
Wow.
I really believe that the Earth is producing antimatter all the time. Whenever you get a thunderstorm and a lightning bolt shoots out, you're getting gamma and you're getting
and those plasma balls and stuff, for sure.
Yep.
So what is antimatter? I mean, isn't antimatter just a word they use to make their equations work?
Exactly. It's like, isn't it a quantum matter essentially, or even it would be ether matter, if anything, or dark just plasma, which is a higher dimension.
Yeah, you're getting real technical now. Even for me.
Come on, get the words right.
Even for me.
Well, you got it, Campbell, and that's where I predict it's plasmatic, and then from plasma you get the fifth dimension or state, which would be your etheric. So it would be something in between the two.
And basically, they can't let us know that we live in an electrical system. That's why they don't talk about stuff like that. And I don't even know what they teach about volcanoes. I can't even remember. It's something to do with tectonic plates and pressure or something, but definitely nothing to do with energy transference from
Earth. Yeah, exactly. They never talk about that. They only talk about movement.
Everything they teach is mechanical, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't talk about the ether and the energy.
Oh, that's total taboo, right? Taboo science.
I know, right? It's because it works.
Exactly. That's why it's taboo.
Oh. Martin's having a live with Santos tomorrow on a small channel. Do I want the link? Sure. Who's small channel? Post the link, hippie. I still haven't spoken to Santos. Geez, I think we've had like 2 interviews booked, and he keeps missing them. Well, I keep missing. I missed one, then he missed one day. I'm just gonna go to Mexico and turn up on his doorstep, I think.
That's
Mexico's a place to be, man. I mean, they're so free, they don't need a convoy, man. You don't even need a test or anything to get in there. They can just fly in there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous what's going on. I think a lot of people are really just fed up with it now.
Well, I just hope they do something. The problem I see with what's going on at the moment is, I mean, it's good. They're all there. They've got numbers, they've got energy, but what do they want? Do they have a plan? Like, what are they going to do? This is the thing. Like, unless they're there, like, this is our plan. We stay here until they're all marched off in handcuffs or something. But they just seem to be sitting there going, "Oh, just stop the mandates, please." I mean,
they're just trying to do this reset. They're hell bent on doing this global reset.
Oh yeah, that they are, yeah. But this is the thing: if the convoys were organised, they could actually do. There's in Canberra, there's more people than police. So if the people had the right, mindset and strategy, then it'd be done. But at the moment, half of them are going, "Oh, the police are our friends. Just be nice to the police." The police have been beating people up for 2 years. They're not our friends. And then, some are saying, "Oh, all we need to do is get rid of the current prime minister and change him for a different politician, and they think that's going to bring change. And it's like, guys, you don't like. How many times has that happened? Like, we need a reset for sure, just not theirs.
Yeah, reset. We're moving them.
Yeah, we just remove. Yeah, just a cleansing.
Mm.
Lead Key and Bonacci, link it up. Truth Seeker 2. What is Truth Seeker 2? Is that the channel Hippie Shake? Sorry, I'm reading that.
Well, as far as I see, like globally, what's happening, I think the oil companies that are all behind a lot of this global reset, they're in trouble. They know it because their oil is running out.
Well, their money is running out too. This is what, look at the financial markets. Their systems collapse. I mean, literally, it's collapsed. There's not, fiat's now just, let's just play if you want to.
See, the problem is it's so expensive to mine oil that it's not even worth it to mine it anymore because the costs are so high, right? And then when, now that's why, regular academia is starting to look into free energy stuff now. They're looking for alternatives because they have no choice anymore.
But the whole way along, they're trying to make it not free, free for them, right?
Well, they want to leverage themselves in a position where they still have control over the energy. Well, guess what? It ain't gonna happen like that.
No, it's not.
Because look at me, guys like me working at home, making generators that are 1,000% efficient. Okay, guess what? Free energy is going to be free for everybody. Energy should be free like the air we breathe.
Exactly. The air we breathe should be free too. Free from off.
And in Canada, we have a carbon tax. So, like, what a joke.
And idiots would have voted that in, right? Carbon tax. I mean, what are we made of, right? We're carbon beings.
And that's a Justin Trudeau idea. Carbon tax.
Trudy, the man who sits like a woman.
Oh, he got COVID, by the way.
Of course he did. Just at the exact time that everyone might storm, into the cities and started to threaten.
Yeah, he's hiding.
He's out of there. But COVID.
He's actually got it for the second time, and after being vaccinated 3 times. 3 times he's been vaccinated, and this is the second time he has caught it. So
both his kids have got it.
Tells you how good their experimental
both his kids have got it.
Yes,
yeah, both his kids got it. Yep.
Shows you how effective it is. I just can't believe how fast we went from, a vaccine
free energy to
3 to 5 years to now they last for 3 to 5, not even 3 to 5 months, right? 3 to 5 weeks. That's it. Booster.
It's insane. And I know so many people have caught this recent one, and it's like the weakest flu they've ever experienced, and they're over it within a couple of days, and it's all testing positive for COVID. And it's like, what a freaking joke.
And you know what? Honestly, I think the globalists wanted this virus to go on for 5 years. But
never let a good crisis go to waste is how.
Well, they wanted to make the reset more effective, and it's actually started.
We were supposed to be locked down for 5 years or so, and to the point that it became normal. Right. And that's what it was. We were never supposed to be
working on now. We're in year 3 of our self-imposed martial law, right?
Self-imposed,
what about, so there's a question, what about cost to make copper wire for your coils? Usually I just get scrap, and most of it's been free, donated to me from different electrical workers, home builders, stuff like that, where just get scraps and
so much waste.
Exactly, literal so much waste, and you can use that. Or when I've had to go out and buy it, it's like $10 to $20 to get enough to make huge coils, the entire system. Yeah. It's like, of course, nothing's fully free, but we will be doing videos, especially me and Mike here on Sundays, of salvaging different materials, and I will make sure that this weekend I do a episode on specifically just that.
Yeah, like you could take a regular wire and you can make it into magnet wire. All you have to do is just put varnish on it, let it dry. Because essentially that's what magnet wire is. It's just copper wire with a varnish on it. So you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. You could go to your local hardware store, buy the cheapest wire you can buy, get some varnish, and just varnish it.
Depending on the type of coil. Some specifically need varnish, some specifically need it without.
Yeah.
But exactly. I love this. Trudeau tested positive for Coward 19. That's a great one. I call him Trust in Judo because, you trust in the judo. And that is Trust in Judo. Our Prime Minister, Trust in Judo.
Is in like
because you're trusted in that judo.
Yeah. Speed up Trudeau now.
Hey, Callum.
I thought his name was Trudy Castro, but
yeah, that too.
Hey, Callum, how you doing? I haven't said hello to anyone. Hey, Hippie. Who's that? Tomcat. Ingresso. Tommy Aquasol. Oh, nice. Water Soul. My family caught the COVIDs, but my husband didn't survive it. He passed away. Oh, shit.
Oh, I am sorry about that. And the original virus, especially, like I know a few friends that caught it within the first 2 months back in like February of 2020, and they still to this day can't smell, they're asleep, constantly tired. One of them has lung problems still, one of them has heart problems, where it's like that was a legitimate bioweapon. They're not necessarily bioweapon, but it was a gain of function, human engineered something that got out and attacked people, and those were serious. And I'm sorry for the loss of your husband. And that is the reality, is that there is still out there these pockets of that original horrible man-made engineered thing that you do not want to get that. But they might have created a weaker version like this Omicron that everyone I know has gotten over it in a couple of days, and they're still testing positive for COVID. If that actually is the case, and it's a variant of COVID and it's that weak, it's that if you catch that, then you're going to have the antibodies to resist the original one if you then encounter the original one thereafter. And that it would be better if that is the case, right? And that's why this needs to be declassified and made public for people to actually know what the hell is going on. Because if that's the case, everybody should have it. You have your herd immunity, and boom, you're over it, and we can get back to normal. But they don't.
See, but the thing is, this started over 80 years ago with the food manufacturers putting garbage in our food.
That's what I was going to say. Is a big part of this is everyone's been sitting at home eating crap food, like not exercising. Right. So most people's immune systems are compromised anyway. So if there's something else, out there, then it's going to hit you harder. And like my father is actually like a lab technician by trade, and he says if you look on the bottle or on a can and there's a chemical in there and you cannot pronounce it, it's not good for you. Right. If you can't pronounce it, it's not good. Exactly. It's it's not natural. It's pharmaceutical. This is a big topic, isn't it?
That's another rabbit hole to jump through.
I think most of this is psychological, to tell you the truth.
Sure it is.
We know about the placebo effect, right? That works in reverse too. If you think you're going to catch something, then you're going to. And I think a lot of people,
right?
A lot of the normies actually want to. They want to go, yeah, I had it. I don't know why, but
that's very much a psychological thing. Yep.
I don't know anyone who's had it. Right? I don't know anyone who's had it, or who. I don't know anyone.
I know many that have had, and through the different waves too throughout time. And for anyone that had the most serious effects out of it was the initial within catching it from that first 3 months. And then it makes sense that there was that second one that came out in like started in February, but then they're like, oh, actually there's traces of it back in December too. And it's like, so in November when they ran their simulations and the military what do you call it, not the false flag, the test for it or whatnot, all in November in Wuhan, it's like that was when they actually had a lab leak of some sort. They acknowledged the whole world. That's why the US Army was also over there. They were trying to figure out what to do. And then that's why this weak one also showed up in Fort Lauderdale or wherever in the US one, is that they then released a flu-like one to try to get that herd immunity going from that initial one, that why there was all those crazy, insane deaths throughout mainland China, because they were the mass exposed to that initial one. That was so bad. Because it was what was leaked from the Wuhan lab, and
virus.
So it was
virus is a bunch of dead protein cells. That's
the guy that discovered viruses or AIDS or whatnot. He got the Nobel Peace Prize. He came out and said that he was pretty sure that they were trying to work on a gain of function that would create a AIDS vaccine through this. And it's like, it's a realistic theory. Whether it's the case or not, it's like that is much more reasonable than it's like, do you want to believe in positive humanity or negative humanity, that it was released intentionally as a bioweapon, and that chances are it was also those SARS were bioweapons, where it's like it was registered for the Winnipeg virology lab in 2018, that 2 Wuhan scientists that were in the Winnipeg Canadian lab were caught smuggling a COVID SARS virus documented by the RCMP in Canada in 2018, that they were caught with this, and it had 96% the same genetics as COVID-19. So it's like, it's been around for many different militaries for a long time, and somehow this genetic...
Remember when it was coronavirus at the start?
I think it's all
coronavirus,
way back from SARS. It's a modified SARS virus.
We've had coronaviruses since at least the 50s. It's just a flu. That's all coronavirus is.
Well, until they did the gain of function, and they literally mixed AIDS. So there's HIV DNA genetics within COVID-19. That's another thing that is like a scientific fact that's been genome documented.
I wouldn't
and it's like
I've heard people. You know, because when you think of the symptoms of AIDS, right, it was all about anti-immunity, right? Deficiency syndrome. You know, a lot of those symptoms are similar to what people are getting now. People are losing their immune systems. They're losing sight.
There's going to be major side effects from this for years to come. I don't think
it's out there. There's no putting it back out. That's why
the side effects are going to be.
It's. People are playing with fire, man. It's
exactly.
So let's do
real bad.
An experiment. It's an experiment until next year, and that's when the first one ends. A trial, man. We're in trial. Like literally.
Let's play the video
there.
Yeah. Let's go to the video so we can have a smoke break and come back.
Mike,
good call.
Earlier today, it's on his channel, but this is of the. The
flywheel generator. Yeah, the flywheel generator.
Oh, okay.
So it's the mechanical
based
battery.
Off Lead Scallon's work, yeah?
No,
it's slightly different. This is different
style, right?
Cool. And also, guys, remember to go across to Faraday Research, subscribe, like, share, hit the bell, all that stuff. If someone wants to chuck the link in chat, that would be awesome.
So,
this video will pretty much explain everything, how this works, and how we use it. So,
it is Wednesday morning, and I'm doing a video today. Last night I was up pretty late, and I was working on the flywheel generator. So, it went very well. I got it complete. This is a prototype 1. Now, just by doing my preliminary tests, I I found out some interesting facts about this flywheel generator. It does work, but certain parameters have to be in place before you get over unity. So obviously this model will not be over unity. I might toy around with some different motor generators, but this one here doesn't seem to be the choice that I'll probably have to go with. I have another motor in mind that might actually be a better motor generator. Yeah, so last night I worked pretty late on it, and I hooked up the circuit. And before anything, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, bottom right-hand corner, and also all the links are in the Patreon there, in my description for my Patreon, my Bitcoin. If you like what I'm doing, please donate, and you'll get some perks there. And I'm working on trying to get some sponsorships right now. Working on ideas how to do that. And yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on. That's why I haven't really made many videos in the last week. But anyways, I decided to tackle this flywheel generator last night, kind of spur of the moment. So all the testing I've been doing is using this I charge it up to about 14 volts, and it's a 500 farad capacitor bank, and you can get them on Amazon. So what I did is I hooked up the circuit. So instead of using the TIP 127 transistor, I'm actually using the auto relay. Now, that might also be a reason why it's not working to the way I want it, but this is all part of my testing. So I might have to actually get a TIP 127 MOSFET. I do have another MOSFET that I could use. I might even try that. Yeah, so basically the way the circuit works is the motor works as a motor and a generator. Okay, so just to look at the flywheel here, obviously I'm only using an 8-inch flywheel. Now, from the tests that I've seen and the performance that I'm getting, I would have to go to a dramatically larger diameter wheel. This is 8-inch. I would have to go to either a 24-inch, 2-foot diameter wheel to get better results, because the flywheel generator, it's getting its over unity from the kinetic inertia of the wheel. So even though that this thing's about 3.5, 4 pounds, it does work, but you have to go way faster speeds. And yeah, you just have to go, the smaller the wheel, you have to go higher velocity. The larger the wheel, the less velocity, but you can add a little, it will naturally have obviously more mass. So a mass in motion tends to stay in motion. That's where you get your kinetic energy. That's why they call it a mechanical battery. All right. This is just a prototype. This is just to kind of see how the circuit works, how it performs, where I have to make improvements to make this thing an awesome machine. And I think the flywheel generator has huge, huge potential. And I actually heard Tom Vallone actually speaking about the flywheel generator system. And he says it's probably one of the best over unity systems out there right now that has the highest potential. So I think we should really take a second look at a flywheel generator system. So I got two magnets, 180 degrees apart. All right. Actually, I'm going to shut this off because I still have some power in the... Okay, so for every 180 degrees, it's going to trip the switch. Okay, you hear it? That's tripping auto relay. So every 180 degrees, it gives the motor a push. All right, and in the meantime, within that 180 degrees, it's charging. So every time it hits the magnet, it becomes a motor and pushes the motor forward. When it's off, it's charging. All right, it's charging, motor, charging, 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 motor. All right, so it has intervals. And the original plans that I found on the internet, it only calls for one magnet. So basically, it's one pulse for 360 degrees. All right, now they're using 2-foot diameter wheels. Okay, I have 8 inches. So for my test, I decided to put, 2 magnets 180 degrees apart. That will give me a little bit more push because I'm not creating enough kinetic energy in that wheel to sustain itself. So it's pretty self-evident after my testing that that's exactly it. So the bigger the wheel, the better the wheel. All right. Not so much the speed. It's the diameter times the mass. So there's actually calculators out there that you can actually find out the actual kinetic force in joules. And there is a calculator out there. You can search online for it. So obviously this thing, is not going to be over unity. Okay. But it does have some pretty interesting results. So I charged this thing up to 14 volts. And then I cut the power supply off it and I let it go. My very first run, this thing sustained a run for 10 minutes. A 4-pound wheel, a big honking ass motor generator, and I sustained a 10-minute run. Now, that in itself is pretty amazing because even though it's 500 farad, that's at 16 volts. So I had 14 volts in it. That means I had maybe about 350 farads in it, and it ran for 10 freaking minutes. So that in its own is quite amazing. So obviously there is huge potential for this. I mean, really big. And I do believe those guys were getting 300% over unity ratings, but you got to have a big diameter wheel. This is only 8 inches. I got to go to 24 inches. All right. This thing is about 3.5 pounds. The wheel, I would need about 5 to 8 pounds. And that creates a lot of kinetic energy and inertia. And, or not so much inertia, more kinetic energy stored in that wheel. That's why they call it a mechanical battery. And obviously the rig is going to have to be a lot better. It's going to spin a lot more true. There's got to be a lot less mechanical losses in the system. That contributes to its inefficiency, right? So, but this is just kind of proof of concept model. I knew this wouldn't be the end game by far. Okay, I can build right, but when I go to prototype 2, it's going to be quite a bit different. It is going to be way, way, way better. So I'd like to demonstrate it for you. Also, questions, comments, bottom in the comments section, please leave your comments. I do correspond with a lot of people. So if I don't get back to it, don't fear. I'll probably get back to you within the next day. I'm just overrun by, constant, correspondence all the time. So really, really cool build. I really enjoyed making this. Like I said, I took scraps. I had stuff from my old end machine. I had old prototype parts. They had the bearing fittings in there. So this thing's actually running on bearings, seated bearings. So if you got junk around, hey, use it because you can make stuff with it. There's a lot of stuff you can do. So I tried it, vertically. I tried it horizontally. It seems to perform vertically better. I don't know why. It just runs a lot smoother. It could be because of the way the bearings are. So, I'm going to fire this up and I'm going to let you see how it runs. That's a little bit noisy. It's not that bad, but we'll give it a shot. I also have a kill switch at the back here, which actually I should flip it around, but it's been running pretty good. So, all right. So I'm going to get it fired up. I'm going to get the power supply going here. All right. So it's already started up. So it's charging the capacitor. It's drawing a lot of amps because I got it set kind of high. Let's go a bit lower so it's not killing it. Let it charge up the capacitor. And you hear the clicking. Every 180 degrees it clicks. That becomes a motor. And when it's off, it's a generator, so it's charging the capacitor bank. So this thing draws quite a bit of power when you're charging up the super cap, plus running a load. So that's why it's so high. All right, so we're gonna bump it up a little higher. I want to get it up to about, we'll go about 13 or 14 volts. Now it's spinning a lot faster. Like I said, this is just a prototype, man. Like, I'm learning a lot from this prototype real fast. So bigger the wheel, the better. This thing's only 8 inches. I got to go to 24 inches. And I like to use a super cap because I can really see the performance. Bump it a little higher. Let's go to 13 volts. Let those amps go down. When they go down to under about an amp and a half. And then after I got it charged, I'm going to shut the power supply right off and just run off that bank. And it's not true as well. You know, there's a lot of mechanical imperfections. Obviously, that's true. So that's going to contribute to losses. But I am learning a lot from this. So the next one's going to be quite a bit better. But it does work. It works. You know, this little cap bank can run this for 10 minutes. That's pretty good. When it's only got 350 farad in it. Yeah. All right, let's bump it up. Let's go 14. Okay. We got it at 14 and a half. This thing could go to 16 and a half volts. This motor can handle 24 volts. Actually, no, 48, I believe. If I'm not mistaken. 48. It's either 24 or 48. All this stuff you can buy on Amazon. All right, so we're at 14.4. Amps are starting to drop down. That means it's almost charged. Just let it go. That's the magnetic reed switch. That's controlling the switch here to turn on and off. Okay, so we're good. We're at 14.4. And we are going to shut it off. All right, now it's just running on capacitors now. We'll just kind of take a walk around so you can see what's going on.
So how much power are you getting out of the other end of it?
That tinging noise, that's actually the relay switch. So that's why I might have to go to a MOSFET. But I wanted to try this switch, and it does work. And this is running off the cap bank right now. It's got nothing attached to it. So it's running the wheel and charging the cap bank at the same time. But obviously, this wheel's going to be way bigger to get the efficiencies that I need. And obviously, the whole rig itself is going to be way better. This is just a kind of proof of concept to see how it's performing and what it actually does. But very cool build. I like building this. This was a fun build. I have another motor that is a 30 watt, and I think that was built more for a generator, but it is a motor. It's a lot smaller than this one, and I think I might be able to swap this out and put that one instead, and I'll try it again. I might get better efficiency because it's a 30 watt, so I figure while I use 30 watts to run it, it should be able to produce 30 watts. So, yeah, well, we could maybe try that motor out just for kicks. And it's still going. It's running on this. I don't know if you guys are timing it, but the last time that I did it, it ran for 10 minutes on its own. So she keeps going and going. Now the
So
whole thing
without
is,
that
if it can
setup, that
sustain
motor will
itself,
just run it for about.
you would
5
use
minutes.
actually a lead acid car battery. It has a lot more capacitance. So if you're able to tap off the car battery, run an inverter, and this thing runs and sustains the battery, that's the purposes of this machine apparatus. So
basically,
starting to slow down.
So that'd be
it's
good for buses and like my bus.
Yeah, well, they use that in
Battery
Switzerland.
charge.
Well, they used it in Switzerland on buses, and they were running the entire bus on this flywheel. Mind you, the technology wasn't as good back then, but it did work. It would actually drive the bus for 6 kilometers and stop at this. It'd be like a utility pole with a couple of electrodes that would come down and attach itself to the bus. It would get the motor spinning again, get the flywheel going. Since it gets up to speed, then it leaves. Then it goes another 6 kilometers and does the same thing.
Wow.
So it is doable.
And it's running off the electrical energy it's producing, not off the mechanical spin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
The kinetic energy.
Were they electric motors or were they alternators? They were motors, were they?
Well, both.
An alternator. What's an alternator? Is a generator as well, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, a generator could be say the one that's in your car. If you rewire it, you can make it into a motor. So it can, serve both purposes. Like a regular DC motor can run as a motor and also produce power. So it's a motor and a generator all in one. So that's what I'm using for this.
Cool.
So the concept is you're relying on the kinetic energy to keep that wheel spinning.
Yeah.
And for every 180 or 360 degrees, you give it a little push. And then it keeps going. Give it a little push again. So it's
charging half the cycle and spinning half the cycle.
Well, no, it's only charging for that instant.
Oh, just as it hits. Okay.
It's just giving it a quick little push. Okay. So for the rest of the 360 degrees, it's in charging.
So Ed Leedskellen's wheel had all those like rib things. Were they magnets? Like if you put more magnets around there, would that?
Yeah, but I think his was. I'm not too sure on his motor. If it had magnets going all the way around, he was using it like a pulse motor. But this thing is not a pulse motor.
Yeah.
It's using the kinetic energy to actually constantly charge with only using.
So if you had four magnets, then you theoretically would get twice the charge.
No. It gives it a push 4 times. So if you got enough, so if your flywheel is heavy and you get it spinning up to say 1,000 RPM, it takes a lot of energy to stop it. So it carries the wheel around. So to keep that wheel running and keep it sustained, for every revolution, you give it a push, a quick push, right? So when you get up to that speed with that amount of kinetic energy stored in the wheel, it takes a lot less power to sustain it.
Yeah, gotcha.
Got it?
Yeah.
So that's what this motor is.
Now all you need to do is float the axle in mercury, and you'll have no friction, and you'll be going.
Yeah. The better the rig, and make it very little friction, you're always going to have a certain percentage of mechanical loss. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if I were to take that wheel and spin it in outer space, it'd probably spin for 1,000 years because there's no resistance in space.
Yeah, wow.
It's perpetual motion at that point, right? Well, look at the planet, It keeps spinning and spinning and spinning, going around the sun for eons.
This is the question, does it?
I believe it, while the Earth orbits around the sun, right? So, it takes 365 days for the Earth to make one spin around the sun, right?
Well, the sun spins around us. So this,
Yeah,
we don't know
yeah.
what shape it is. This is the big question, isn't it?
That's going down another big rabbit hole.
Going down another rabbit hole. I know. I have to pick it up on that or people yell at me. I was actually talking to someone the other day, and she was saying, we all have an aura, like an energy field.
Yeah.
Bioelectric, what do they call it? Bioelectric something.
Yeah.
Which is basically a circle or an egg shape. Who knows? Maybe it's even an oblate spheroid. And she was saying, so if the Earth is a being like Gaia and we're living on it, then anyone observing from outside would see a ball. Like they would see the energy field. They wouldn't see the flat, but inside it'd be flat.
Yeah, because all of us contain energy. We have that aura. It's part of us. The only time it leaves us is when we die, right?
Yeah,
it goes to
we
another
leave
form.
that thing that is us.
Like our physical
exactly
body.
Where we just rejoin more of our
we return to the cosmos. Yeah, we return to the cosmos.
That's a good way of putting
it. Part of the universe again. Yeah,
leave the meat suit. But I mean, and that question, if we could tune into the frequency, like we can get, different motors and that, and antennas, could we suck in more energy? Like I mean, is that what monoatomic gold does? I guess it makes us more. What more?
Well, we could. Well, if you tap into the right frequency, you could actually go through history. Like there are several inventions made over. I think it was back in the 40s or 50s. I'm trying to remember the name of the inventor. Actually, he was a Jesuit priest, and he made the thing called the chronovisor. And he was so he was heavily involved with Vatican.
Yeah.
And he made this supposed time machine portal where they could
talk to people in I reckon they talked to Jesus, didn't they?
Yep. See the crucifixion of Christ. A whole bunch of different stuff throughout human history.
It's interesting because and then if you look at the there's tons of pictures of these. I think they might call it the same thing, or whatever it is, a chromo, whatever. And they're like mirrors, but they reckon that they get ghosts and spirits and things in them, and they can talk to them and weird stuff. And that's what science is, right? It started as a seance.
Yeah, because I do believe in life after death. I believe, our physical body is dead, but our soul lives forever. It becomes back. It goes back to the universe.
Well, they've proven that when you die, your body gets heavier by like a measurable amount, but a small amount. So like the life force, the light, it's left. So you get literally heavier, and that's why a baby is a fetus, right, until 3 months, because suddenly, boom, heart starts beating. Yeah, and doesn't stop until you die. So
I honestly believe that there is life after death.
Of course there is.
We have multiple lives. There will be in this time frame. We could be in one with the universe for 100 or 200 years, and then finally our soul goes back into a physical state. Our like I said. These guys at Stanford University and SRI, they've been trying to figure out where the human consciousness is in the brain. They'll never find it. They'll never find it because the human consciousness is not here. Our body is a radio. We're a
receiver. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. They're looking at the wrong spot.
Yeah, and this is people get confused with brain and mind, right? It's like if you ask someone to draw a picture of their mind, 99% will draw a brain, but that's your brain. That's a completely different thing. That's just
our body or brain is just a radio receiver.
Yeah, well, when you die, your brain's still there, right? So clearly that's
right.
not what makes you think. So
yeah, they'll never find consciousness in the brain because it doesn't lie within the brain.
And they probably looked. I mean, imagine how stupid that is. They probably have literally cut open brains and like, look, where's the consciousness?
Yeah,
because they're
they'll
so
never find it
from reality that they can't talk about the ether, right, and energy because they're so detached, right? They can't, and that's why everything's backwards and messed up and doesn't work.
It sounds like a crazy concept, but honestly, I would tell you right now, I would actually put money on that theory. Our consciousness doesn't lie within our brain.
Of course, it makes more sense when you think about it, but we're taught that what you know comes from books and that. Yeah. But every single person you talk to has, random thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like, where'd that come from? I mean, if everything we got was from books and from other people, we'd never have an invention. We'd never have, it's so...
Yeah, you have to be able to, our consciousness allows us to methodically think things out, try to figure things out. You know what I mean?
But then we get this inspiration, which is coming from, that's the Meyer, coming from the whatever, God, the universe.
Yeah. But how our mind curves is what we're exposed to in the physical reality.
Yeah, that's what they try and mold, right? That's why we go to school. I get into school and say, no, here are the parameters of your box.
That's why, SRI Institute was studying remote viewing and psychic ability. Every single person that's on this planet right now has psychic ability.
Of course.
Everybody does.
100%, yeah. And it's the same thing. We've been told that that we don't, and that stuff's silly and woo-woo, and don't believe that, or you'll be an idiot and an outcast. And of course, so then the people who believe the rhetoric, they're the ones who, get their degrees and get paid high money, and the system says, look at these people, they're experts, yay.
Yeah. Like I've actually, done some experiments with my mind and had some pretty miraculous results.
Ooh, nice.
Remote viewing? Like literally made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That's how crazy it was.
And as we go along, especially the last year or so, all these abilities that they're getting stronger. People are getting more access to them.
That's why I think the ancients were so far ahead of us, because they knew about this. Like the movie Star Wars, they talk about the Force. Well, guess what, everybody? It's real.
It's real, yeah.
It's real.
Yeah. Well, Star Wars is it's basically, it comes from the Vedas, the ancient Indian writings. That's like Darth Vader, right? And Yoda, and then you got yoga and yogi. I mean, hello, Yoda.
Like right now, I have other interests too. Like I do the free energy stuff and over unity stuff, but I also have a huge interest in the ancient text of Book of Enoch and the Nephilim and the giants of Kandahar. So I got a really large interest in that. Yeah. And
it seems there's got to be some validity to it, because you get the same story across different cultures in different books and stuff, with different names and everything, but it's all the same story. Something came down here and messed with us, basically.
It's genetic manipulation.
Well,
like I had something really freaky happen to me back in 1989. I was on a camping trip in this area of Ontario that we call Algonquin Park, and the Algonquins are the native Indians that live in that region. And I had a sighting of a Nephilim in this national park, and I decided to Google search Nephilim in Algonquin Park, Canada, and guess what? The ancient Indians that lived on that park centuries ago were talking about a race of giants, red-haired giants that lived in that park.
So what did you see when you say you saw an Anunnaki? What was it? Giant?
Okay, well, we were on a hiking trip, and we were coming near a cliff, and there was a set of trees before the cliff, and I just happened to look up in the trees, and I seen one of them watching us. And I'm talking a being that's 25 feet tall.
All right. Right.
And I seen him. He noticed I seen him, and he took off before I could get to that area where he was.
Well, did you want to get there? I don't know if I'd be going towards that.
Could you? Okay, at that time I was about 13 years old, 14 years old. Yeah. About 14. Can you imagine a 14-year-old kid seeing a giant that stands 20 feet tall?
That's pretty big.
Could you imagine the look on my face? And not to mention that I couldn't really say anything to anybody else because they would think I'm crazy. Right? I know what I saw, and the best way I could describe this being, you know the movie The Hulk, from whatchamacallit? Okay, just picture something like that in real life.
Yeah, right, really big, yeah, wow.
Yeah, that muscular, that big, well, actually bigger. And it was like basically a Marvel Comics superhero come to life. It was freaky. That's all I could say. It was freaky.
Where do they get all these ideas, right, for superheroes and everything? But a lot of people also, I've heard, are asking the question of the Bigfoot. Is that the Anunnaki? I've heard that like in a couple of videos recently.
I think, honestly, Bigfoot actually could be part extraterrestrial. It's a shapeshifter.
I've heard that it disappears. Yeah,
they're shapeshifters.
Maybe, yeah.
I think they actually are shapeshifters.
Bernie's got a Hulk. There you go. That's what the Nephilim look like. You can see the little teddy bear there on Bernie's screen.
On Bernie's screen, I can't really see it too well. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that what it looked like, Mike?
A lot larger
and scarier. Yeah, when I was in like Cairns in probably early 90s, I guess. And there's a pyramid there called Walsh's Pyramid. Well, it's a mountain, but it looks like a pyramid. And I was walking around one day, and after this rainstorm, and normally I think there was like one little river went around the pyramid, and went down there, and it was all flooded, and there was like all these tributaries and islands. It was like a complete different landscape. It was just bizarre. Right. And like we were literally like jumping from little island to little island. And because I was with a friend, and he took off somewhere, and I was doing something, and then I saw out of the corner of my eye these really tall, skinny, but really dark figures. And I was like, what the? And I stood around and looked, and there was like 3 of them, and they were just walking towards me, they're almost like shadows, like that dark. And one of them just came up, and he just knelt down on his knee and like put his thing and just stared me right in the eyes. And I was just sitting there, just freaking out. I just bolted at that point. But yeah, there's lots of weird shit around.
Yeah, even like the giants of Kandahar, they're alive and well there apparently.
Where's Kandahar?
Kandahar in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, well there's that famous photo of those.
Yeah.
Those
so, I have a friend from Toronto, a buddy he works with. He used to be one of the National Guard for Afghanistan, and he talked with a few of the religious heads of that area, and they talk about the Nephilim. They're alive and well, and they live in the mountains.
There's a story of where they found. They say they found a Vimana. Have you heard that?
The Vimana. Yep.
And apparently, like a big red-headed giant dude ran out at them and killed it. Yeah.
It killed a whole platoon of the U.S. Special Forces, and they sent a second crew in there to basically try to find them. Got confronted by this giant that stood about 15 feet tall and about 1,100 pounds, killed one of the members, and then they opened fire and shot the giant in the face, killed him, and they put him on a skid and hauled him off. So apparently this giant had reddish hair, stunk like high heaven, like terrible, and had 6 fingers and 6 toes.
The 6 fingers and 6 toes. I've met someone with 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Yeah.
But they were just a normal sized person. But yeah, that's obviously another trait of the Nephilim. And they talk about finding the grave of oh God, what's his name?
They've also been known to have 2 rows of teeth.
Yeah. Some of the ones they found in the USA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, have you looked into Patagonia?
I haven't heard much of that. No.
The Patagonian giants. There's a race of giants down there.
They're all over. Apparently, there's a huge, a large number of them living in Antarctica. They've been entombed there for a long time, but apparently some of them have actually thawed out and have come back to life again. They're like in cryogenic state. And that's why in World War II, the Nazis were in that area a lot.
Well,
so
yeah, that whole story is another whole, New Schwaberland and everything is.
Yeah, New Schwaberland,
Yeah.
So I think can you imagine, honestly, a giant coming down and walking down the street in Sydney or Perth down the street? Could you imagine the look on people's faces? Honestly, he wouldn't even have to kill anybody. People would just have a heart attack seeing this thing.
Yeah,
really,
yeah, they would.
And it's well documented all throughout history of the Bible, even in India, Afghanistan. These giants were known, and they did exist.
Yep, and all the stories. Someone just said Paul Bunyan, and there's of course Jack the Beanstalk.
Yeah. How about David and Goliath?
David and Goliath from the Bible.
Right.
We have God, I'm losing words today. England used to be known as Albion, and Albion literally means the land of giants. And there's a story of a giant there that was called Gog. Gog.
Like even the history of Egypt is kind of twisted too, because it's starting to come out now that the pyramids were there about 4,000 years before the Egyptians. And if it was the Nephilim or the fallen angels that built that pyramid, it would actually make a lot more sense.
They're probably much older than that even. Some star alignments put them with the precession of equinoxes at 36 to 48,000 years old.
Yeah,
I believe.
Is that based on the Sphinx, because it was at the age of Leo?
No, just the pyramids alignment with the Orion's belt and how many cycles of that 12,000 half precession cycle, or the full precession of 24,000. So it's that the pyramids line up with Orion's belts precisely every 12,000 years, twice a cycle, so that it could be either the 36,000, so 1.5 cycles, or older. Actually, and then there's one lady that from University of Calgary. Actually, she's a professor Egyptologian. I think they do the pyramid code, but she says that it could go back to 72,000 years old. And the last I heard, she was doing a research project in video on the underground labyrinth that's supposed to be like 10 times the size of the pyramids there. And this was a few years back, and they've never come out or been allowed to publish.
She got disappeared, man.
But she was on Netflix, though, her pyramid series there.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
But you know what? Like, if the Egyptians say, "Oh yeah, it was the Egyptians that built the pyramids," I would believe the Nephilim building them over the Egyptians any day. When you have a being that's that big and powerful, and you got an army of them, they can build something like that. where
right? Or
you know, a
even
man that
go into the Atlantean or Lemurian theories too of or Thoth and his emerald tablets and how he goes back and that it was done in the age before the Great Flood, which we call Noah's Flood from the Christian or Islamic Western religious point of view, but now from the scientific, it is also the the Younger Dryas period, which is correlation to Plato's time of the Atlantis flood, which he literally stated he lived 3,000 years ago, his writings apparently, and he claimed it was 9,000 years before his time, which is exactly 12,000 years ago, which is exactly one half of that grand cycle, which is exactly the time that the Younger Dryas now shows that there was a massive impact in northern Quebec and Ontario there that melted the ice cap, and where before they thought that it took hundreds of years or 1,000 years for the ice cap to melt, it now shows, and Randall Carlson does great work on this, showing it, that the ocean rose 400 feet in only a year to 3 years tops. So right now, if you think about it, humanity, 90% or 85% of the world's population is on the coastline. So if the ocean were to rise 400 feet and we had our ice cap like come this giant glacier that was covering half of our land mass or plain just melts, and
it was 3 miles thick
and 400 feet more of ground along all of the coast. So it's like, if you want to look for your Atlantean cities, look 400 feet down off the coast of your country and your land, and you'll find it. And sure enough, it's like everywhere they go, about 400 feet down, you're finding these pyramids and whatnot, like Anaguni structure, exactly 400 feet.
In the Bay of Bengal, when they had that tidal wave and it emptied and they saw all the cities out there.
Exactly, right? And Graham Hancock does a lot of good work in finding those sort of cities and whatnot.
Yeah, both of them, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. Those two are really good to listen to. I highly recommend those guys.
So Canada says those mines are craters are mines. I'm not talking about like the thousands of different holes. I'm just talking about the two big blast holes. One, you have to look at Randall Carlson's work to show it, but it's there, and it said it was like Hudson Bay is one of the craters, I think, or like part of it, and then
one of the impact zones.
They're giant impact zones, and something like that could be what sunk Tartaria, like the Tartarian maps of the north, right, and where they line up a whole bunch of land that is sunk in northern Siberia that used to be in the Tartarian maps, and then all of those holes and those giant impact craters that are literally all of the north. That could be what wiped out whatever it was. Maybe it wasn't necessarily a comet. It could have been something else, but maybe that's when these Tartaria was maybe Atlantis time of 12,000 years of when those maps were. And it was like one big reset before, and that we've just been, they've mushed several different civilizations after several different catastrophes together.
I think the whole
thing that has that extra land, like where Australia is connected to Antarctica, that would be before that, right? Where it's 400 feet down, 400 feet lower. So any of those maps that come from the time, even they might have been made in the after the reset 15 years ago or a few hundred years ago, but they were copying the ancient maps from before the reset sort of thing, and that's where they were getting this extra land from. And then now you can go onto the Google Maps and then look, and it's literally all of the missing land is just underwater, especially in the Siberia area.
You see, like, I think it all boils down to time. You know, you've had all this change over thousands upon thousands of years. The landscape of the planet's going to change a lot. whether it's
like that's what we're taught now. I have to think, though, because I took several years University of Geology and whatnot, and in the history, it's like before World War I, we were taught catastrophism, right? And it's like all of a sudden there was this tectonic thing that came in after, but it's like you look at these ancient Tartarian maps and like the cities, the castles, the rivers, especially throughout Southeast Asia, Siberia, and whatnot. And now you look at it on the Google Maps, and it's just giant holes and ponds and lakes wiped out where these places were, or underwater, or these crazy ruins that you find in like Kazakhstan and throughout all of that sort of former Soviet Union areas. And it's like, maybe these resets, it was catastrophism. And another thing that was taught before World War I was that we were the history of Atlantis. So that there was Atlantis. That was what was taught in actual university. Like you can look back in, both like Yale and, but in the UK there, Oxford and whatnot. And it was 1800s, they taught that Atlantis was this previous civilization that got wiped out, so that when you look at all of these ruins, it's like, no, we aren't. The last reset was only after World War II, where it's like, oh, we are the best of now. We've never been better. We are the smartest we've ever been. Like this Darwinian bullshit of stupidity. Like, no, so we believed catastrophism, and we believed that there was this greater society that was Atlantis or whatnot. And now we're getting all of these maps with this giant world system of former lands, former cities, and a unified antiquitech global culture. And it's like whether maybe Tartaria sprung up after, in between Atlantis, and there was another reset, or who knows, but it was that this new empire of Rome / Jesuits YOLO mentality in history. It's only like 100 to 150 years old, and like, was that why in between World War I and after World War II, so many people were put in these mental institutions because they refused to believe that Christ compelled them?
That's how you change. Like the narrative pretty quick.
It's mind-boggling, because you're dealing with thousands upon thousands of years of history.
All these maps. Yeah, there's no way that the dates they give us on them are right. They just can't. They can't be right, because there's just disappearing islands that they appear and they disappear, and they're there in the 1500s and not in the 1400s.
See, that's part of the New World Order. If there's important documents, the scrolls and the emerald tablets, the Smithsonian's got to gobble this stuff up and hide it.
And most of these, a lot of these old maps are come from the giant books. Have you seen those photos of the books that are like 6 foot high? Because these probably, and they're actually the maps are like 10 foot or 20 foot. They're just massive, like the originals. Because they're probably
made by the Nephilim.
Exactly right, made by people bigger than us, and people go, "Oh, it's just so they can put it on the wall," but I don't. It's just
there's just so much of history that's been erased.
Are all giants Nephilim? Because we have this concept that the Nephilim are bad, right?
Yeah. From what I've heard, there are a race that are not the enemy. They're actually good.
It would have to be, because you wouldn't think that bad, evil spirits would build a worldwide grid that makes free energy and makes everything good for everyone,
there were giants that lived in harmony with the regular size human.
There were giants in those days.
Like anything in any history, there's always going to be good versus evil, right?
Look at humans, right? Well,
I
don't know. There's the one thing you power humans, as such, but. But maybe it's a Nephilim behind all this, and they're controlling them. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe they were the ones who seeded the planet, right?
Right. Well, a thing to resonate with and think on is if we were made in God's image, and that if there were these giants or these bigger humans that were this Nephilim or cedar race or demigod race that existed prior reset before us, were they the level 2 civilization that inhabited Tiamat that Mars orbited around, that was the 4th giant planet? And did it explode and then they create us and try to live here afterwards and then adapt to the smaller planet and create the mini version of us or the new version of us? And then it's like they either went to war with themselves again or with us or something. And then after this latest reset, whatever happened, either they decided to hide themselves where they're living off plane or inner Earth or in these other greater realms to the north and south, that there's all these legends of them, but that before that they used to share the Earth with us. And I can't help but relate that to Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle Earth, and the elves leaving and the dwarves leaving, and you have these dolmens and like the little miniature, they call them even the hobbits now, they found the bones on that little island in the cave and whatnot, but you have the legendary and pretty much the indigenous people of every area talk about both like dwarf, midget, fairy peoples as well as the giant races. Then when you're talking about even from the Bible of David and Goliath in Palestine now, Israeli occupied land, there is the pyramidal structure that is known as his grave, and it's like this giant megalithic mound with all of these giant megalithic stones, and it's like in the ancient language that's written on, it states this is a giant Goliath grave. And it's like, well, we could easily use these technologies to see down there, yet they don't let us. And as far as North America, all of these giant mounds that also supposedly contain giant burials, the only place our government cares about native land rights is those mounds. You can't dig up a native burial renowned skeleton, but you can decimate 99.99999% of the rest of the environment there for everything destroyed, even though the population
do you know they built something like 7 Walmarts on those mounds? Literally, they buy them, they go in and they just trash them and put a Walmart on the top of them.
See, like I like to do, like if I can find somebody in my area who is an Algonquin, and sit down and talk with them, and I'll ask them, what do you guys know about the giants? And I'll be curious to see if there's any legendary stories.
Well, we've asked the Australian originals, and they've got stories for sure. So every culture the same. So it just makes sense, right? It's everywhere. Because that's what I was going to say before. They found Gilgamesh's grave, apparently. Gilgamesh was a giant from that. Gilgamesh, and apparently they found his, and he was a giant. But you get all these reports, but of course they never really release the information, do they?
No, it's suppressed.
So is that why we're not allowed to go to Antarctica?
Well, obviously they're hiding something.
They're hiding something.
They're definitely hiding something.
Because I always think about Tolkien and the elves, because we have these like tall whites, right? And they look just like the elves from Tolkien. It's like UFOs. They're not going to come out and say, "Hey, there's UFOs. Here's the proof. Here's their ships," and all that. It would disturb the status quo, right? But same thing with giants. Oh, by the way, there's 20-foot giants living in Antarctica right now. Everybody would go nuts. And we used to have pygmies in Australia, and I haven't seen or heard them. Like there's photos. Like my mum got taught about them in the school in I don't know, the 50s and 60s. And there's photos and everything. Everyone knew about them in Queensland. They were a proper race of people. Now they just disappeared.
How big were they?
Oh, like 4 foot for a tall one, like proper
Really,
pygmy. Yeah,
really,
yeah.
Quite small.
Yeah. There's photos, and there's 2 types. You see, there's little people that are like the dwarves that have got the shorter limbs, and then there's little people that are about the same height but anatomically like us.
Yeah,
they don't have the short limbs.
Yeah.
So there's so much going on. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a lot of mysteries. A lot of mysteries on this planet.
A lot of mysteries, indeed. We've been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I might have to jump off soon. I've got to get.
Yeah, I got to head out.
I've got some editing to do.
Yeah, Bernie, I got to head out here.
I also have to head out here too, but it was a pretty epic stream all in all.
Yeah, we did a good shot.
We hit a few points there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So remember, everyone, go across to Faraday Research, like, subscribe, share, and the Crypto Alchemist. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Crypto Alchemist.
Both links are in the description, as well as to Spiral Up and Autodidactic 2, which Campbell's other wonderful channels. And we will be on this Saturday. Our evenings will be your Sunday morning, Campbell, schedule.
So 2 days, kind of, Saturday,
Yeah, and
this
for
is going to be
the science of sound, the science of sound one, and
I will be there
good.
with Starboard pictures in hand.
Exactly.
Yes, awesome. All right, guys. Well,
All
thank you all for joining us. Love you all. Thanks for all the interaction. Stay awesome, and we'll talk to you all in a couple of days.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, brother.
Take care, guys. See you guys soon.
Much love. We will see you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
Later, Mike. Much love. I'm just going to play a little video here that I had lined up before I end the stream. Or do I? If you guys are looking for something to keep watching now that we are sadly ending, I'm going to play just a sample of the global breakthrough energy movements. I'll show their page here, put a link for it at the end, but one of Moray King's presentations, and he is an absolute legend in the HHO, Brown's gas, H4, basically Stanley Meyer style work, but connecting it to the cold fusion plasmoids and vortexy structures of plasmoids and the supercapacitance of the cavitation through the plasmoids that happens in it. And what the heck did I just say? Well, listen to Moray B. King and you will find out. And while I get that loaded, in the meantime, we will play one of Campbell's lovely edited.
This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, where we seem to be here, and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one, or
cosmic resonance. That's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
When you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. That of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
Yeah, so I will be uploading that. Was uploaded on my main channel, which YouTube still hasn't given me back. But I will be re-uploading and scheduling very shortly here the full interview with Michelle. There's actually 5 of them in total that will be rescheduling and re-uploading here over the next few weeks. So you guys are in for a treat. They were very, very good videos. And then we will also have some new content with Michelle here by the end of the month. So she's very busy these days with Guru, but we will have her back for some new material. But in the meantime, I promise you at least once a week a full past Michelle collaboration, as well as 2 with Paul Cook. That we have one that wasn't even released yet that will be coming too. So there is a lot of good material, although I believe the majority of them are on autodidactic channel already if you go back a few months in the videos for the dieharders. But in the meantime,
so is that just a coincidence? The name? Synchronicity, right. There are no mistakes in this vast universe. That's wonderful. Anyway, without further ado, Maury King, please.
Thank you very much, Mitchell. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Jerome asked me, I had too many slides, and he asked me, can you do a plasma presentation because Tom Vallone just wasn't able to make it. So I guess I owe thanks to Tom Vallone, I get to give the double presentation, because what I'm talking about is mainly a plasma effect. From the water, from the Brown's gas in the water, there's a secondary gas which is producing essentially a miracle from the water. Because in there, in the secondary gas, it takes the form of a cluster, a torus form, that when it goes into the internal combustion engine and that piston is up top dead center, and you hit it with a pulse, you create a vortex ring plasmoid that exhibits anomalous force, anomalous energy, and anomalous acceleration, like a miniature flying saucer propulsion that shoves the piston down. Very different model than just heating air and moving it. And so thus, it is really a pulse plasma phenomena that I will be talking about. We have the first slide, please. Okay.
I need to find the best way to learn math and science.
It's brilliant.
Whoa.
Brilliant has thousands of interactive lessons in math, science, and computer science. You'll solve fun problems and learn from clear and intuitive explanations. Brilliant gets you hands-on to help you learn by doing, because studies show that interactive learning is 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. With over 10 million users around the world, Brilliant is the best place to learn interactively. Get started for free at brilliant.org.
There is one refinancing tool that you must have if you want to lower your 12% or more car interest rate. Do you know where to find this holy grail? And did you know there is only one Canadian company that allows you to save big on your car payments by lowering your interest rate without having to change your current vehicle? It has helped hundreds of Canadians overpaying interest on their car loan to effortlessly save up to $7,000 starting with just one click. This solution targets the real root cause of your big car payments. This doesn't involve getting into a dealership, dealing with the banks, or having to initially provide confidential information to see if you qualify. Hundreds of Canadians have already reduced their car payments and are saving millions of dollars without having to leave their couch. It's so simple and easy because it targets the single actual problem of your expensive car payments. It's easy and works every time. The best part is that it only takes one simple click to see if you qualify. But click the link now to watch this important video because the solution is something the current automotive finance industry does not want you to see and learn about. Hundreds of Canadians from all provinces have been sharing how this new money-saving breakthrough has helped them lower their interest rate almost instantly. And for the first time in years, they can finally enjoy the extra cash.
Yeah, you're gonna play an ad on me, YouTube? I'll play my own and get back to the video.
How can a car run on water? Explaining that is a lot like telling the story about the Irishman who was leaving the pub. Hey, it's possible. To discover new energy, we must first accept the possibility that it could exist. Otherwise, we will just not look. And we will ridicule those who do. And we see many examples in science. The Wright brothers, recently the Pons and Fleischmann and cold fusion. I believe the biggest travesty in the history of science was Boltzmann's constant, because the scientific community at the time refused to accept his theories of statistical thermodynamics. And he was so distraught and so depressed over this rejection that he actually committed suicide. At least they named a constant after him. Now, Jerome gave me some extra time, and I made up a joke all by myself. But my wife, she says you shouldn't tell it. But I think you guys could handle it. Should I tell it? All right. Well, I'll just recall it. Yes, I know. If it turns out that the powers that be, because my ideas on 0-point energy are just so good, that the powers that be just can't stand it anymore, and they send the men in black to whack me. And if, I have to recall the joke, if it turns out a few years down the road, the idea is we're on the right track, and you have your free energy machines and your flying saucers and whatnot, and if you choose to honor me, I have one request. Don't name me for a constant. It's much too static for my taste. I prefer something a little more dynamic, say a nonlinear function. More A of X. I like the sound of that. It's not only does it sound like you're honoring me, but my home planet, Planet X. All right, I'll tell my wife. She says, don't clap, it just encourages me. Well, we hear on the web, every few years there's an announcement, there's cars that run on water. This recent one is from Pakistan. And the reason it made press is because the leadership in Pakistan got on board and said, man, we got to really support this. Of course, the physicists in Pakistan said, hey, it violates the laws of thermodynamics. I just love what the reporter said. Why all the whining about violating the laws of thermodynamics? Tell me one law in Pakistan that has not been violated. That's why they're ahead of us. If you see that, Daniel Dangle in the Philippines, had it for years, getting no traction with the adults. So he started up a summer camp for kids. At least I'll teach the kids how to make water cars. Steve Ryan in New Zealand's famous because he made a motorcycle run on water, and he made it to 60 minutes. That's what made him famous. In Japan, they have gene packs, made this car run on water. Let's play the video. It's a short video clip.
With oil prices soaring and fuel protests spreading across the globe, it almost sounds too good to be true. A car that runs on nothing but water. And all kinds of water will do. River, rain or sea, they all make this car mobile. Even tea works. Japanese company Genpax unveiled the eco-friendly vehicle in Osaka. Once water is poured into the car's tank, an energy generator takes hydrogen from the water, releasing electrons that power the car.
The main characteristic of this car is that no external input is needed. The car will continue to run for as long as you have a bottle of water inside for you to add from time to time.
According to Genpax, a litre of water will keep the car running at a speed of 80 kilometers for around an hour. The company hopes to go into mass production with a Japanese manufacturer. With car users around the world looking for alternative fuels to power their vehicles, Genpax may well have the solution they've been looking for. Michelle Kalal-Al-Khoury, Reuters.
What if you could make a full-time living line, getting paid for your advice? You might not know this, but there is a surge of people launching brand new websites that are making between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, getting paid for.
We're gonna skip that ad and keep this content free.
Well, that's a weenie little car. Us inventors in America prefer something a little more macho. Play the video, please. It even cleans your environment. I like to show the video clip of Denny Klein because it very quickly summarizes the properties of Brown's gas. So let's play this video.
Turn the machine on. Denny Klein fires up his hot new invention. His machine emits a flame that feels only slightly warm to the touch. But watch what happens when he touches anything else.
Instantaneously, I can burn a hole right down through the center of that brick.
The flame instantly turns hotter than the surface of the sun. Heat so intense it takes only seconds to literally burn a hole through charcoal. 3 seconds turns a brass ball to glowing liquid metal. Tungsten lights up like a sparkler. Steel, lead, and other metal slices on contact. Yet the tip of the welder stays cool to the touch.
No other gas will do this.
Denny Klein uses an alternative fuel source once thought impossible. He says people still have trouble believing him when he reveals his liquid fuel.
Water. Take water and electricity, and we break it down through our very unique electrolysis process.
Klein has just patented his process of converting H2O to HHO, producing a gas that combines the atomic power of hydrogen with the chemical stability of water.
It turns right back to water. You can see the water running off of this.
Klein originally designed his water-burning engine for cutting metal. He thought his invention would replace volatile acetylene in welding factories. And then one day, as he drove to his laboratory in Clearwater, he thought of another way to burn his HHO gas.
On a 100-mile trip, we use about 4 ounces of water.
Klein says his prototype 1994 Ford Escort can travel exclusively on water, though he currently has it rigged to run as a water and gasoline hybrid.
Simply speaking, it can change the world by reducing our dependence on fossil fuels.
These are equivalent to our... Pete Dominici is helping Klein take his hydrogen technology patents from a 2-room office in Clearwater to consumer markets around the world.
You know what? Microsoft came out of nowhere, came out of the garage. Why not hydrogen technologies?
The duo is already in negotiations with one U.S. automaker and the U.S. government. Their plans have grown from basic welding with water to powering the entire world from the safest and cleanest fuel on Earth. Craig Patrick, Fox News.
Members of Congress recently invited Denny Klein to Washington to demonstrate his technology. Now his company is currently developing a Hummer for the U.S. military that can run on both water and gasoline. So far, his water-powered engines have passed all performance safety inspections, so all systems appear to be go right now and gives new meaning to the term running water.
You just have to hope that water prices don't go up like...
Oh, go ahead. It's Denny Klein. These water electrolyzer projects are extremely popular. There's websites all over where there's blogs and everything else where people are sharing information. Which way do I point it? Okay. On YouTube, there's over 41,000 videos posted. Down in Florida, twice a year, they have a big tent and everybody comes out and shows off all their wares and their experiments. March Labs, there's commercial units for sale. Very popular, the dry cell kits where they use gaskets to separate the plates. The Anton cell out of Germany is very good. It has a very tight gap, 1 millimeter. We'll see why that's important later. It also allows you to feed the water in from the bottom, and we'll see why that's important for circulation experiments. Sterling Allen made this video for me 5 years ago. This was part of the advertising that was put for the, did you all see it? Who hasn't seen it? You guys want to see it again? All right, let's play it.
Can water provide the fuel of the future? While academia has been spurning the topic, hundreds if not thousands of hobbyists and independent investigators worldwide are working on various electrolysis-like projects, which put out more energy than was required to run the electrolysis unit. These pursuits go by various names such as Brown's gas and water fuel cells, and have various heroes such as the late Stanley Meyer and more recently John Kansas, who is burning salt water using radio frequencies. A number of commercial interests are involved in the research and development of the various approaches as well. The famous 19th century scientist Michael Faraday defined the limit of output energy possible in any standard electrolysis scenario. It is well known in thermodynamics that it takes more energy to dissociate water into hydrogen and oxygen than can be returned when the hydrogen is burned. But these rogue experimenters of today are reporting output from their setups that exceed Faraday's limit many times over, claiming 7 times, 10 times, or even more, producing as much as 1 liter of gas per hour using just a half a watt of electricity. The factors that seem to contribute to these effects include using a large number of stainless plates close together, the plates rough to facilitate releasing the bubbles, driving the cell using square waves, pulsed DC at kilohertz frequencies, and constantly modifying the frequency to optimize gas production. Moray King, who has published 3 seminal books on zero-point energy, recently put forth a scientific model in which he suggests that the excess energy being observed in these unusual electrolysis setups comes from the zero-point energy by producing charged water gas clusters, which somehow achieve a self-organizing criticality that coherently activates and absorbs zero-point energy. The experimental setups are typically rather simple, which is leading to a proliferation of the number of people reproducing and working to improve the effect and its consistency to the point where it can be used to serve as a practical primary energy source, an energy generator that could operate anywhere there is water. Zero-point energy is everywhere in the universe. It is the foundation of the fabric of space. Other groups, such as Exogen Technologies, are using these processes to purify water. These energy sources could actually produce culinary water as a byproduct. The day of water power via zero-point energy is arriving. Welcome to the future.
Thank you, Sterling Allen. He
They
made that
are
video
sneaky
5
with
years ago.
those ads. How does YouTube know to
Well, there's
play
lots of names for the gas, but the common names are Brown's gas because he was the
right
first to notice the
after a
energetic
video
anomalies.
within a
He thought
video?
maybe it was atomic hydrogen and oxygen. That's what HHO stands for. Another name is hydroxy. The formal chemical name is oxyhydrogen. This is what most people believe is Brown's gas. However, there's a secondary gas present. And some of the inventors that discovered the secondary gas named them after themselves. Charged water gas clusters is what I called it. Electrical expanded water is what George Weissman called it. And he made this announcement in the 90s, so I credit him for being the first to discover this. Omasa in Japan, likewise, has a clever way of making this pure secondary gas. And SG gas is Seward and Gorley down in Florida, same town as Denny Klein, also noted there's a secondary gas present, and they have a technique for harvesting it. Nearly everyone believes the energy is from hydrogen. But electrolysis can't produce excess energy. It simply costs you more energy when you burn the hydrogen, it costs you more energy to separate the water than you ever get back when you burn the hydrogen. And that the real big reason why you can't do it by burning hydrogen is because the internal combustion engine is so inefficient. It's about 20% efficient. You inject the fuel with air, you ignite the fuel, it heats the air, the heat expands the piston, and most of the energy gets wasted as heat. So if it's not burning hydrogen behind these devices, what is the energy source? Well, we're going to cover these breakthrough ideas. First one is that the zero-point energy itself exists. And would you believe that most of the standard engineering community does not know this? It was not in their textbook, and they get off right there. They just cannot believe that there's actually an energy present in the fabric of space. And the physicists get off on this one. Self-organization can occur. I mean, you can have coherence occurring in this zero-point energy. They just can't believe that that could possibly exist. So the physicists get off. However, when this self-organization occurs, it occurs in these pulse plasma events. And the zero-point energy forms up into these vortex ring plasma forms called plasmoids. And these exhibit the anomalous energy. And they exhibit anomalous force. And furthermore, they can coherently cascade into bigger plasmoids or vortex forms. If they get caught up in a vortex, they can energize the vortex itself. The energetic matter that's in a torus form, that's symmetrical like that, in a somewhat of high energy state, can be converted to a plasmoid when it's abruptly pulsed. Here's the important point. all the energy does not have to exist in this cluster. This cluster is a template or a scaffolding or a form that when it's in the internal combustion engine and gets sparked, that's when it gets converted to a plasmoid. That's when the big energy spills into the system. That's when the anomalous force gets manifested to move the piston. We're actually moving the piston by 0-point energy. And moreover, these clusters can form in inert gas and in water. It's a miracle they can form in water because it makes the experiments so easy. And the reason I chose these electrolyzer projects for the last 5 years, or 6 years now, is because it offers the opportunity for massive replication by hobbyists. Everyone could actually successfully build a 0-point energy device if we learn how to make more of those charged water clusters. And I'll give you a clue. You cavitate the water. This makes the internal combustion engine actually an advantage instead of a disadvantage. You inject the energetic clusters, you give it the high voltage pulse, there's repulsion, there's anomalous force, and it moves the piston by a 0-point energy effect, a pulse plasma effect, moving the piston. Thus, it opens the opportunity to retrofit all the automobiles of the world to easily run on 0-point energy. We will see here an archetype form that keeps repeating, the energetic torus. The recurring pattern occurs 4 times in this presentation. The collapsing cavitation bubble takes that form, from which that's a picture of it. The plasmoids, of course, are vortex rings, and they're in torus form, and the inert gas clusters, and the water gas clusters. Of course, the Thrive movement. Have you all seen this one? Yeah, everybody's seen this one. That's the latest incarnation on this. When I started in the 70s, people had this vision of toruses and everything else. I've had it, for ball lightning. It was like everybody's getting this revelation of, and I called it donuts on the brain. And it was like the good Lord was trying to turn us all into Homer Simpsons. So we'll go through these breakthrough ideas. We'll look at the 0-point energy. In the beginning, in the 18th century, everybody believed in the ether to support, it was the energetic substrate that supports the light. The Michelson and Morley experiment came along. They said we can't detect a static ether, just one form of the ether. But it made general relativity very popular, or in special relativity. However, it wasn't long before an energetic substrate was invented for physics when quantum mechanics came along. And they said there's this underlying jitter in the fabric of space. Now, it's very interesting historically that we believe in an ether in our science to 1905, where relativity becomes accepted. We think the space is empty up until 1930, which comes back in the form of energetic fluctuations. So here we have a 25-year gap in the history of science that completely dominates our beliefs today. That the engineers just don't see it. They don't believe that there's an energetic substrate. And the good news is this energy that can make these virtual pairs form up and all this activity is far, far more dynamic and far more open for energetic possibilities than that old static ether was. We really are onto a great model as for how the physicists view the vacuum. There's lots of papers in the open literature, especially in the Physical Review regarding 0-point energy, and it can show how quantum effects can rise from it, how the hydrogen atom can be stabilized by it, how it can be an energy source without violating thermodynamics. Thus, it's a politically very important paper. It can be the source of gravity, and an exciting paper was how it could be a source of inertia, which means that the 0-point energy is the foundation of inertia, which means that if you can make a technology that coheres the 0-point energy just a little bit, you can create an inertial drive which allows you to go under abrupt accelerations without feeling inertial stress. Flying saucer propulsion. Basically, it's in our science.
Selling physical products like this is not the best way to make money on Amazon in 2021. And I get it. All you hear about when it comes to making money on Amazon is selling physical products. So you just assume that must be the best way to make money.
savages with the ads.
The zero-point energy is
that was key,
modeled
what Mike just said here.
like a turbulent,
Or more.
chaotic plasma with electric flux entering and immediately leaving. They call it the quantum foam. This is Wheeler's model from geometrodynamics. But can self-organization be triggered in this quantum foam? At first, the answer appears to be no. It's chaotic. It's random. Random things must forever remain random. Thus, the second law of thermodynamics. But the breakthrough idea is that self-organization occurs. And this idea was given to us by Ilya Prigogine, who won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1977, showing how a system may evolve from chaos to self-organization. And the system, any system that fulfilled these three requirements would exhibit self-organization. The system must be nonlinear, far from equilibrium, and have an energy flux through it. Now, what's the energy flux for the zero-point energy? This diagram is very important. This is Wheeler's orthogonal flux model. That flatland slot represents three-dimensional space. In string theory, they call it our three-brane. And when the flux comes through incoherently, we just come straight through with random jitter. We say that's the background zero-point energy. If there's a slight tilt to it, so there's an alignment in our space, we call that the polarized vacuum. And if there's vorticity coming through it, a spiral as it comes through, that is the elementary particles. Thus, in this model, the flux of the zero-point energy, this orthogonal flux, as it spirals, stabilizes all particles in existence. It's like the flow of the stream stabilizes the whirlpool. So this was a pretty tough sell, especially to the engineers, and I had a hard time explaining it. So I once in the 80s made the hyperspace workshop, teaching higher dimensions to housewives. And what we did is we got these little cardboard slots, and we put them down on the table and looked through them, and we pretended we were flatlanders. And we had no awareness of the third dimension, and we would bounce balls, and that would represent like the wave-particle duality, and then we would see if we could tell if something was connected or not connected, and that was the idea of quantum entanglement. And guess what? They got it. And they went home to their husbands and talked about orthogonal fluxes and orthorotation of the energy and of hyperspace vortices. And the husbands would go, "Not tonight, hon, I got a headache." And what's gotten into you? Why? ZPE. ZPE for you and me. Robert Lachlan is on the same page with self-organization. He's the Nobel laureate. His thesis was everything arises from self-organization of collectives, including the laws of physics themselves. I highly recommend this book. So what are the principles for cohering the zero-point energy? Work with a highly nonlinear system like a plasma, abruptly drive it far from equilibrium with an abrupt spark or abrupt discharge, and maximize the zero-point energy interaction using ions, nuclei, and you get coherent effects with vortex forms. Conduction band electrons, that's your normal electricity running in wires, copper wires. They are effectively in thermodynamic equilibrium with the zero-point energy. Thus, we don't see very many effects of activating zero-point energy with our normal everyday conductors and electronics. However, the nucleus of an atom shows vacuum polarization lines that converge very steeply onto the nucleus, and thus any type of abrupt motion of nuclei is an activator, a coherent activator of zero-point energy. In this model, we can see a surge, the ion surge, how it can bend that zero-point energy a little bit in our space. This is, Tom Bearden likes to call that orthorotation, where the orthogonal flux rotates in to our three-dimensional flatland spot. So I think when our politicians in America just shout, "Drill, baby, drill," that us breakthrough energy movement-teers should shout back, "Orthorotate, baby, orthorotate." Please note, my wife also told me not to say that. In the experiments, even in the ion collision experiments, they see it. They call it exotic coherent vacuum states arising on quantum electrodynamics. They see it in the plasma experiments. When the ions move synchronously, they call it the ion acoustic mode of the plasma, and is known to exhibit energetic anomalies in the plasma experiments. And these anomalies are associated with self-organizational modes in the plasma. And they see large radiant energy absorption, high frequency spikes, and runaway electrons, and anomalous heating. And this self-organization tends to be a torus form, a plasma vortex ring. The rotation around the ring, it's like a helix, a tornado closing on itself. And to make these, you need pure symmetry. So here's the breakthrough idea that those plasmoids cohere to zero-point energy. Ken Shoulders probably offers the best experimental evidence for these. He launches micron-size plasmoids with just a sharp pulse from a capacitor. It must be very sharp. And he knows the power on the capacitor, the energy on the capacitor, and he can see the damage these things do when they hit a conductor. They have craters in it. They can high melting of high melting point material like aluminum oxide. The Russians are on this, and they were describing in detail. This is Masat's work. What happens at the tip of that electrode? This is a blow up of that tip. What happens? There's a little liquid metal protuberance just before it starts to come out, and then the tip of that breaks off. That liquid metal, and it's that symmetry of that tip breaking off that creates symmetrical vortex ring flow. So Ken Shoulders went ahead and coated his electrodes with liquid metal so he could replenish the tip to make the pure EV launcher. And he called it EV, was Latin for electron validum, strong charge, because he saw a tremendous amount of what seemed to be a lot of charge present in these things. And later on, when he got convinced that there was a zero-point energy effect, he called them exotic vacuum objects. And they contain about 100 million electrons, 100,000 ions. The charge to mass ratio always seems to settle in about at the electron. And of course, they contain excessive energy. He's seen chains. They tend to form into chains and clumps. He's seen positive EVs. And this is interesting because when they strike a conductor and decay away and give back their pulse, he sees no 1/2 MeV gamma rays at all. So that means they are not comprised of positrons. Instead, he's on the fundamental mechanism of self-organization of manifesting charge from the vacuum itself. And he believes he's on a very fundamental discovery of how to manifest self-organization from the vacuum in general.
Robert, the board just approved the plan to build your sales team.
That's fantastic. And they can work from anywhere.
Wherever and however. They're your hires today.
Including my move to Paris.
Someone wants to upgrade me a YouTube so they no
They
longer
form pairs, just like pair production. You can see them spiraling around each other.
YouTube. Give them a
The black
chance.
EV is very important. They can go quiet. They still exist in a metastable state. This is very important when we talk about the nature of the water cluster, because they don't have to have all the energy being manifested, and a small pulse can reactivate them. We'll be revisiting that idea. So basically, these are the anomalies. They can adhere to dielectrics like ball lightning. Many can clump in the necklace formation. They bore holes in high melting point ceramics, and they disrupt the electron bonds of the metal they hit. It is not heat that is disrupting the bonds. It's something more coherent. It's like the bonds just let go. And there's experiments showing element transmutation. And if you transmute radioactivity, you have a possibility for technology of radioactive remediation. There's a whole nother presentation based on that very topic that, by the way, at the end, I'll tell you how to download it. So the breakthrough idea, second, is that the clusters can combine coherently to create even greater effects. And this happens in vortex flow and in vortex ring flow. So Ken has done experiments where he can cascade these EVs. One EV tends to launch the next, And if he has a chain of them, he can make large plasmoid forms that are they're centimeter in size. He hates working with them because when they hit the conductor, they put out such a big EMP, he fries all his electronic equipment in his lab. So he'll say, I'm staying away from those, I'll just study the small ones. He has one of the biggest force anomalies by just pre-making a vortex of water and shooting an EV right down the vortex. He says, you would not believe the force that he gets from this event. So the energetic vortex can cohere the zero-point energy when it's large, like a plasma vortex, because the ions in the plasma can cohere the zero-point energy if they take a vortex form. And it's like we are entraining the ether to follow the vortex. And so we see this type of thing in tornadoes. Here's an example of plasmas in the lab and comparing them to a tornado. So you can envision not only tornadoes, but lightning bolts could possibly have their big energy sourced from the zero-point energy itself. Yes. Every few years you hear about a vortex device, a plasma vortex free energy machine. These are some of the fastest that get suppressed. They're a flash in the pan every time they come up. You're lucky to even hear about them. So here's the breakthrough idea. Energetic clusters can also exist in inert gas. Now the beauty of inert gas is it does not combine chemically. There's no combustion with oxygen. It offers pure experiments to study these anomalies of pulse plasma anomalies with energetic clusters. And would you believe it? The inert gases, when you spark them a lot, don't just come back down as separate. They form into clusters, especially if there's a mixture. And they seem to have this energetic form like those black EVs. So when you hit them with a laser, and they've done this in the laboratory, you see this anomalous explosive force. And they studied the formation of the cluster, and it tends to have symmetry to it. And the symmetry is very important because what we're trying for when we pulse it is to get that vortex ring. And of course, the famous PAP engine was based on that. I highly recommend Eugene Maloff's issue 51 of Infinite Energy. It was completely dedicated to a number of projects associated with exploring the PAP engine. And one of the things interesting about the PAP engine is notice the cylinder itself. When it closes, you'll see a vortex ring flow as the cylinder closes of the plasma itself. And so when they pulse it, they made a giant, large plasmoid, a plasmoid that's large, that was comprised of the small energetic clusters in the inert gas. And he keeps them energized in the PAP engine because he uses some radioactive material to keep things in a high energy state. And there's replications on the web. Various hobbyists and inventors are doing these experiments showing they have a lot of force on these abrupt plasma events. And a lot of them, they didn't even get to the point of making the inert gas clusters. And if they do, I'm sure they'll see much bigger effects than just simply doing the sparking and working with just single gases. What PAP stresses, you had to do a lot of pre-sparking on the mixture first in order to have the high energetic clusters. So the hobbyists have yet to even explore this bigger anomaly that PAP has discovered. There's rust grease is another replication. It's really fun because they're sharing as open source on the web. They're sharing everything they learn.
Very good.
Here's an interesting one. Samantha Cinch cuts some grooves in the cylinder of just a normal internal combustion engine, and they're all puzzled. Gee, why is that help? It seems that you get more force, more horsepower, and they're all scratching their head. Why? Well, the answer is it creates a little bit of a plasma vortex ring as the gas ignites, creating more anomalous propulsion, adding to the normal behavior of the gasoline internal combustion engine. So here's an idea. The energetic clusters can form in water. This is the real miracle because it offers easy experiments. Peter Grenou was one of the first to explore abrupt pulsing just in water. He has a chamber of water, and he does a very abrupt pulse and creates a force anomaly. And he's also was an expert in high-speed photography, and he was able to photograph the plasmoid that was produced if it was abrupt enough. And so what happens when the discharge is very abrupt, it's like a crack of lightning. There's explosive explosion that throws the weight up in the air, and he photographs how high it goes. And he says, well, I have a nice force anomaly. And by the way, I blew out my bolts. And he didn't even count that. He's blowing the damn thing apart. However, Gary Johnson of Kansas State University did a replication of this work. And what he does, he made his device, his chamber, designed to blow apart. And he could throw those weights up the guide wires, and he measures how high he throws them up. And then he knows he can measure, well, if they went that high and they're this heavy, how much energy proves he has excess energy as well as excess force from the abrupt explosion. He said, and if you don't do it abruptly enough, when you dump the capacitor, nothing happens, just a normal discharge in water. But when you do it abruptly enough, it is the crack, like a lightning crack or thunder. He has to wear the big earmuffs to protect his ears when he does his experiments. It's a huge bang.
If you're trying to make real money online, you need to stop with Amazon FBA, drop shipping, Shopify, affiliate marketing, and MLM. Listen, a lot of those business models are completely outdated and or saturated. My name is Jeff Baxter, and I make over $100,000 every single month without doing any of those businesses. And I know you guys are sick and tired of
your ads, YouTube, and not giving me my main channel back. That's what I'll say. So if you want to wish me an ad blocker, well, that would be fantastic. Or they could give me my main channel back so I can get, YouTube funded. And then there wouldn't be ads anyways, because, it'd be a corporate account. And then you guys actually viewing this educational material would give me an income, which, no, instead, 3 months later, my channel still down on these false claims of pornography, or that 130, I think it was like 15 seconds of sabotage that they did during the first 48-hour live stream. Just so anyone watching, I beg of you, please, protest right email to YouTube to reinstate my main channel, Bernard Conkin, because it's been 3 months. They haven't even given me a reply yet.
Harold Aspen writes about this too. It's in the regular literature about these enormous explosive events from these pulsed ion motions in water. Here's a website that explores, hey, can we tap that to move the piston? And internal combustion engine is pretty crude because we're just working straight up with water and a very abrupt discharge, but they're exploring that. I recommend that website. And Stan Meyer's latest device is somewhat famous for trying to take advantage of this particular event. And let's play this video.
A car that runs on water instead of gasoline. Can it be true? Well, inventor Stanley Meyer made an announcement today in Colorado Springs. He says he's come up with a device that will hook up to any engine and allow it to run on good old H2O. News 13's Kurt Goff tonight on the possible impact of the water fuel cell.
Stanley Meyer says the answer to dependence on foreign oil lies all around us, in seawater, tap water, and rainwater. Any kind of H2O, he says, can power just about every type of engine. How? With the water fuel cell. It fits in the palm of his hand, but it could revolutionize the world.
You're talking about a pollution-free, totally new source of energy, the voltage disassociation of water.
The fuel cell converts water into a gas, hydrogen oxygen, which is released in the form of thermo-explosive energy.
So the water fuel injector simply replaces the spark plug. We hook it to a hydrogen computer system which regulates and meters the flow going into the injector. It processes the water in such a way to release its thermal explosive energy.
The man who invented an engine that can run on water says he's been offered $1 billion in cash by oil-producing countries to sell his patent. So far, he hasn't sold. Environmental specialist Jan Porter talked to the inventor, who thinks that the U.S. auto industry could produce cars that run on water now if they wanted to.
Our industrial base of the world is based on the utilization.
Stan Meyer has a car that runs on water, and that's drawing crowds at this year's Extraordinary Science Conference in Colorado Springs. Myers has developed what is called the water fuel cell injector. The injector breaks down the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen, and the hydrogen is what powers the car.
Basically, all we do is replace the spark plug and replace it with the water fuel cell injectors you see right here. We simply feed ordinary non-processed water or processed water in here, and as the water goes into the injector, it hits a very high pulse voltage frequency, which instantly converts it into thermal explosive energy. And as a result, we can run this car down the road on water.
Meyer's invention was introduced in Britain earlier this month, and now the Brits have followed him here.
We recently took a scientific delegation to witness Stan's work, to really evaluate it, and came back saying, this is one of the most important inventions of the century.
Now, as most of you know, Stan Meyer's intention was, with that plug, to retrofit automobiles. And he was murdered in the 90s. I personally knew Stan. He came to my workshop on zero-point energy at a conference in the 90s, and I got to interact with him with exchanges, mail exchanges and phone calls before that. And you can go to that link and read about an investigative reporter dove in all the details surrounding his death. But basically, they were celebrating in the restaurant a verbal deal that they were these Belgian investors, these mysterious investors, were going to fund the project, and they poisoned him. But the good news is, Stan's brother, Steve Myers, his twin brother, he was the electrical engineer. None of the Stan Myers information is lost whatsoever. He continues to work. Unfortunately, he's reclusive and doesn't want to participate because he's really distraught over what happened. We'll look into this patent on the water injector plug. We're going to see it's really not that simple. He's injecting three things. We have injecting the water, ionized air, and argon, a rare gas. That's interesting. No, very few people know that. Why argon? Argon's used in sonoluminescence. That seems like it's helping there. There's three rings. Here's the front end. It's like a shower head, right? The water's in the middle ring. The rare gas is in the next ring. There's the outer ring, and the ionized air is on the middle ring. That mixture is pre-ionized. And he has quite a bit using lasers and his high voltage waveform and everything else to really get that thing in a high energy state. And then they hit it with a big voltage pulse inside the internal combustion engine. So when we come back,
guys, just a 5-minute warning here that I'm gonna have to end the stream here, but it will keep on going for about another 5, maybe a little longer. I will post the link again for the video playing in the chat, as well as Global Breakthrough Energy Movement's home YouTube channel, where they literally have hundreds, if not 1,000, different videos of insane, amazing presenters like Moray B. King here, as well as the Nunez couple with One Stop Energy and their Peace on Earth Vortex coil, which is expanded Rodin coils. As well as, for instance, Dan Winter's work. He's a presenter on Global BEM annually. There's at least 6 or 7 years worth of his presentations, and literally hundreds of others. And I've actually personally applied for their cold fusion monoatomic, category is the correct term, to present when they start doing online ones, because they were hosted over in Europe in physical in the past, and they have yet to start doing them online since lockdowns. Anyways, I will let this keep playing.
We're going to have a little short break right now. We'll look into a better way to pre-energize the gas, and that's the secondary gas of Brown's gas. And we'll look at the details of what is this gas and why cavitation helps make more of it. And I guess we'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah. 5 minutes. And
a bathroom break, really, because there's so much more to cover.
Okay,
okay.
So be back in 5.
I'm doing a 5-minute break as I give a 5-minute warning. Well, I guess we'll just take a random
Thank you very much.
Halfway through. Stupid ads. Someone want to send me an ad?
What's it like to learn science on Brilliant? Brilliant gets you hands-on.
I don't know. I'm brilliant. I learn science on my own every day. It's wonderful.
Just freely up on the web for people to investigate. And it's absolutely intriguing because here this might be the easiest way to make this secondary gas. Circulating the water is another great idea because you can both cavitate it and charge it by electrostatic rubbing, which means you don't have to feed current into the system. After all, we're not trying to make hydrogen here. We're not trying to do electrolysis. We're just trying to electrically stimulate the water. But why not just stimulate it like with electrostatic rubbing? This idea comes from TV.
Who's lying, the ads or me? Or the presenter?
Seminal paper called Bubbles and Steam Electricity. It's up on the web. In one paper, it explains how steam electricity, waterfall ionization, luminescence, and thunderclouds charge separation all occur from the 0-point energy. This idea, we mimic the dynamics of a thundercloud. In a thundercloud, small ice crystals called graupel are blown up and comes down as rain. You can see this circulating in the thundercloud, how we build up charge. It's just like a Van de Graaff generator. As we circulate the dielectric band, we transfer charge from the
does not look
so
like
this
a
idea,
mushroom.
the electrolyzer, the water in the electrolyzer that's distilled water acts like the dielectric belt, and the rough conductive plates act like the combs. So what we're doing is we're going to circulate the water as fast as we can and electrostatically charge it, as well as cavitate it from the circulation. So in this embodiment, the gas would be produced and it would go upward, and we keep churning the water. Another embodiment, we could use a cavitating pump itself. And when we circulate the water in the other direction, the gas that gets produced helps move the water because it wants to go upward. And don't forget the spark arresters to prevent flashback into the reservoir. And I believe this will likely be the winning embodiment because we use a straight up pump to circulate the water very fast. And we vibrate the plates by reed cavitation. Reed meaning like the vibrations in a harmonica, where the reeds vibrate because the plates are so close together, they vibrate like a shower massage as the water rapidly circulates. So we have everything occurring from this one embodiment. We get electrostatic rubbing, we get cavitation, we get integration of energy in the water as we circulate it over and over again. The energy content from these charged water gas clusters keep building up in the water, right? You could even, if it's highly energized, you can even take some of that water, spray it into a carburetor, and give the illusion that water's a fuel. So here's the goal. If we really have 0-point energy, and we really can activate all of this with tremendous amount of energy in a small amount of gas, that we have a new energy source by making a self-running system. And the best system to make is a genset. So we have a motor generator combination. A generator makes the electricity that you rectify, use it to drive your electrolyzer or drive your pump if you're circulating. And if you can make such a system idle, just idle, due to the notorious inefficiency of the internal combustion engine, it would prove a grand slam home run proof that you're onto a new energy source, because this is considered impossible. And yet 2 teams have recently claimed success. Before we get too excited, though, just a single claim somewhere is not sufficient because there's lots of ways to cheat in this type of setup. Any type of hidden fuel source. You can sneak in alcohol is a very common way to cheat. Hydrocarbon on the plates, any hidden electrical source, right? And even chemical reactions. There's lots of metals that can react with water to vent hydrogen. But because these particular projects, their only motivation was to create a launch open source projects. And they wanted to share all their information on the web just to get replication. There was no request for money. So I will honor their request by saying, I don't think they were cheating. I think they were really, really trying to honestly get other people on board with these devices. I really like Steve Eaton. This came on. He joined with Jeff Sokol at Hybrid Tech. He worked with a pretty good generator. He made a self-running closed-loop system. Jeff Sokol put pictures in his ebook that within a couple months, he was ordered to get them out. He didn't require a whole lot of power, like running the 6 liters per minute, only at 30 amps. And he had some excess power to run a power drill and light some bulbs. Here's some photographs from the ebook. Jeff sent me a complimentary ebook. It's a good thing I made the pictures because it's gone. It's yanked out of the ebook. But there was a small prototype device. The electrical wiring was pretty standard for these things. And it ends up getting 4 volts across his concentric tubes. Just running it at DC, very narrow gap, 1/32 of an inch. That's highly significant. And you see the spiral, he separated his tubes by the spiral filament, like a fishing line, very, very thin. It forced the gas to spiral up the electrodes. So imagine having the gas-water mixture and it's tight gap and it's trying to spiral up and all that rubbing's going on and all that sputtering's going on. So he's creating a lot of turbulence inside those tubes to create more of this charged water cluster gas. He felt he had to make a big device to have all that activity go off to make the unit self-running. And had he known about the circulation trick, he may have been able to do it with a small device. Here in Germany, Oliver and Valentine went on the web, working with a very, very cheap generator. They're lucky. This thing, maybe 15% efficient. They were just hobbyists on a very low budget. They had to jerry-rig the timing and everything else because you want to fire these things at top dead center. And they did a lot of work. And they used a very good cell, the Anton cell. It has 1 millimeter gap, which allows them to have all that turbulence inside the gap. They made a video, the Christmas video of 2010, where they put it on a little cart and they ran the unit on an elevator and they posted it on the web. And
Two-minute warning, Mark. All right, so that's on the Global BEM site. I am now sharing John Hutchinson's latest video, which I am also going to now give you guys the link for in the comments section. And well, I'll play a couple minutes of it in the last 2 minutes of our podcast show. And then we will catch you guys on Saturday night for Science of Sound.
The central Dan became often substituted by thermoscientific. Quite an interesting project. Oh well. Turn on the alarm. Like, go for dinner. Ow! Ow! Come in.
Isn't John a character? But yeah, I thought it was a different one. that was a little bit longer and was covering some of his science stuff. But that one was John as Carla Knipschent, Baroness Klingon Hutchinson, I think he calls himself in that one. And for those that are into crypto, here is my partner channel, Project Moongold. We will play that for the last 2 minutes. This is their earlier stream tonight. And I just shared it.
So right here, give you guys my info, right? Texas crypto miners are shutting down operations as winter storm approaches. Shuttering 90%, 99% of their miners. So you guys can look that up. Now here's the thing with the Texas miners. Texas has a lot of crypto projects moving, like Bitcoin mining stations moving over there, right? So that might be a little bit of a worry for myself, because last time miners shut down, guys, we dipped. Now I don't know if it was in Texas, but right now we're holding the fort. So here's why we're bullish.
Isn't it?
I'll tell you guys why we're bullish.
It confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is it? This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, we seem to be here and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one, or
cosmic resonance. That's a better name.
Real science. You can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing. Is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
You know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony, on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.